Chapter 2251. In particular, the wizardry barrier she set up to drag them underground was like a rock, and all their breaths were blocked. He was indeed the Devil Lord. His power was unfathomable and he knew a lot of things. Devil Lord, we could have run to the top of the mountain to hide just now. Why did we waste so much energy to hide underground? Someone finally couldn't suppress the doubts in his heart and asked. Ning Xuema's eyes flashed. We have always been in the light and he has always been in the dark. Now it's time for us to switch to the dark. You're saying that he's been watching us from the shadows? The general shuddered. Yes. Ning Xuema's sixth sense was very strong. Although she didn't know where Luo Jiuchen was at that time, she could feel his wolf-like eyes following them. If they had been working under his nose, they would not have been able to do anything. So Ning Xuema took advantage of the avalanche to hide their tracks. She stroked the wizardry barrier with her hand. This wizardry barrier technique was taught to her by Shinjioli. She didn't expect it to come in handy at this time. Once this wizardry barrier was set up, she could sense any movement on the ground, but the people on the ground couldn't find them. She could sense Luo Jiuchen walking back and forth on the ground. Devil Lord, what should we do next? Marshal Lung asked. Ning Xuema said, if I'm right, there should be an array core here. Let's break it first. How can we find the array core? Devil Lord, do you know where the array core is? Ning Xuema curved her lips. I don't know, but someone should take us there this time. Later, everyone should listen to my orders. Don't act on your own. Yes, they said loudly in unison. Ning Xuema narrowed her eyes slightly. Luo Jiuchen, you may be better than me in terms of power, but in terms of scheming, I'm afraid you can't compare with an agent. She manipulated the wizardry barrier and led a group of people to walk silently underground, always sensing Luo Jiuchen's track on the ground. This time she was in the dark and he was in the light. The mountainside of the highest peak of the ice peak was also lined with ice towers. It was a typical glacial climate. Luo Jiuchen flew to this place and turned left and right among the ice towers. Finally, he stopped in front of an extremely inconspicuous ice tower. He raised his hand and pushed with a spell. The ice tower silently moved aside, revealing an ice cave below. He flew down. The ice cave was extremely deep and wide, and there were many twists and turns inside. He obviously knew the path and he didn't hesitate when he stepped onto the fork. A moment later he finally arrived at an ice hall. There were no ordinary decorations in the hall. There was only a large pool and there were hundreds of corpses in the pool. Every corpse seemed to have been poisoned when they were alive. Their bodies were ashen green, and their mouths were baring their teeth. Their faces were hideous. It was clear that they had died extremely miserably. The more miserably they died, the more vicious their auras became. It also made the temperature in the hall as cold as the North Pole. It was dozens of degrees below zero. Luo Jiuchen heaved a sigh of relief when he saw the corpses. Thank goodness. The eye of the formation was still there, undamaged. This meant that the girl hadn't arrived yet. He walked around the hall and carefully checked every corner. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he was relieved. He thought for a moment and seemed to heave a sigh of relief. He muttered to himself, so they haven't found us yet. Then he strode out and the sound of his footsteps gradually faded away. Chapter 2252. Ning Xuema and the others had been holding their breaths and listening to Luo Yunyang's words in the ice hall. Hearing Luo Jiuchen's words, they looked at each other in confusion. Needless to say, the array core should be up there. The array core was indeed extraordinary. It was also underground, but the temperature here was more than 10 degrees colder than other places. Even in the wizardry barrier set by Ning Xuema, it was terribly cold. None of the people present were weak in martial arts. Originally, the change of weather would not affect them, but here they were all blue in the cold, and their hands and feet were stiff as if they were not their own. Ning Xuema's face was not much better than theirs. After all, she had done the most in the past 2 days. Even if she was made of iron, she would be tired after working so hard. Marshal Lung and the others were eager to leave the underground and destroy the array core here. Hearing Luo Jiuchen's footsteps going away, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Devil Master, can we go up? That bastard has already checked and left. Ning Xuema pursed her thin lips slightly. Wait. She also heard Luo Jiuchen's footsteps going away and even heard him walking out of the long and winding tunnel, but she felt that something was wrong. Luo Jiuchen's footsteps seemed to be deliberate. Could it be that he had already guessed that she would follow him here? Her physical strength was also exhausted. She wished she could get out of the ground and remove the wizardry barrier, but she couldn't. At this time she had to be very cautious. That man was too cunning. She had to be on guard. She waved her hand and asked everyone to shut up. She held her breath and listened to the movement above. It was very quiet above. There was no movement at all. The advantage of Ning Xuema's wizardry barrier was that she could sense every move of the people above, even the frequency of their breathing, but the people above couldn't hear them. As long as they didn't shout in the wizardry barrier, the people outside couldn't hear them. When she quietly followed Luo Jiuchen, Ning Xuema could hear Luo Jiuchen's shallow breathing, but now she couldn't hear it at all. It seemed that he had really left. Luo Jiuchen returned. However, he had entered silently without making a sound. He had even held his breath, allowing the temperature of his body to drop along with the temperature of the hall. He was almost at the same temperature as the people in the pool. He walked forward slowly and circled the hall again. He then sat down in a secluded corner of the hall. Sometimes it wasn't a bad idea to wait for the rabbit to appear. He believed that with Ning Xuema's sensitivity towards arrays, she would be able to find this place. He wondered how she would react when she saw him, who was already waiting for her here. The hall was extremely cold, but Luo Jiuchen was not afraid at all. On the contrary, the coldness here seemed to be nourishing him. He closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, making a very complicated hand gesture. Strands of cold air from the corpse in the pool were attracted to him and slowly entered his body. His originally pale face had a slight redness to it. He had already held his breath. His body was as cold as the objects in the hall, but his skin was white and rosy, like a fine jade carving. Dozens of feet underground. Marshal Lung and the others were cold and suffocated here. Naturally, they felt very uncomfortable. They kept looking at Ning Xuema, hoping that she could rush out of the ground as soon as possible. Monthly votes, recommendation votes, moi. Chapter 2253. After waiting for about an hour, there was still no movement from above. Marshal Lung finally couldn't help saying in a low voice, "Devil Master, that guy must have left. Otherwise he wouldn't have stayed quiet for so long. We clearly heard that he had gone out just now. Now is a good opportunity. If we miss this opportunity, I'm afraid that he will come back again. At that time, I'm afraid that there will be a lot of changes. Yes, Devil Master, it's now or never. You'd better make a decision as soon as possible. It doesn't matter even if we meet this guy. His kung fu doesn't seem to be as good as we thought. We may be able to fight him together. This array must be broken as soon as possible. It's been almost 2 days. I'm afraid that those who are still waiting in the cave can't wait." Ning Xuema sighed softly. She listened carefully again. Indeed, there was no movement from above. It was like a dead land. She was about to say, "Let's go up." Suddenly, the surrounding rocks shook as if there was an earthquake. The rocks intertwined, and Ning Xuema and the others, who were unprepared, almost fell down. Ning Xuema hurriedly stabilized the enchantment that was almost broken. What was going on? Was it an earthquake? Before she finished thinking, she heard a sudden sound from above. Luo Jiuchen cursed in a low voice, "Damn it! That girl actually used a diversion tactic to destroy the formation core on the west side of this seat." The breeze was blowing and Luo Jiuchen's footsteps were light and hurried. He rushed out of the hall and went away again. Ning Xuema. It turned out that Luo Jiuchen was really waiting here. Marshal Lung and the others were also shocked and broke out in a cold sweat. If they had rushed up blindly just now, they would have met Luo Jiuchen on a narrow path. How could that bastard be silent for so long? This time, Ning Xuema didn't delay any longer. She manipulated the enchantment to go up directly. Finally, they came out of the ground and found themselves in a large dark blue ice hall. They shivered as soon as they came up. It was so fucking cold. The moment they ascended, the enchantment that Ning Xuema controlled also broke. She had used up too much of her strength and mind power and she was seeing stars. Her body swayed slightly, and her hand subconsciously reached out to hold on to a stone pillar beside her. However, she quickly withdrew her hand with a hiss. It was too cold. Her hand almost froze off a layer of her skin. A young general standing beside her saw that her body was slightly swaying and her expression was not good. His heart skipped a beat. Ning Xuema had always appeared as the Devil Master. To these people, she was an aloof and remote deity that they had to lower their heads to whenever they saw her. Everyone here revered her and treated her as their protective amulet. Now that they saw her like this, they remembered that she was actually just a little girl. Although Ning Xuema already had a son, no matter if it was her appearance or her figure, she still looked like a 16 or 17-year-old girl. Her face was young and tender, and her pair of big watery eyes were full of life. When she smiled, there were 2 dimples on her cheeks, making people want to protect her. Now that he saw her pale face, the young general suddenly had a man's desire to protect her. He raised his hand and wanted to help her. "Devil Lord, are you okay?" Before his fingers touched Ning Xuema's arm, she had quietly stepped back half a step. The young general didn't catch her. Ning Xuema glanced at him. It was just a casual glance, but the young general felt as if there was an ice stream washing him from head to toe. He quickly stepped back and finally remembered that she was the Devil Lord. Chapter 2254. The general's heart trembled and he stuttered, I just saw that you don't look well." He really didn't mean any harm, he just wanted to help her. Ning Xuema waved her hand and said, "I'm fine." Then she bypassed him and continued walking forward. She naturally knew that the general didn't have any improper thoughts. She just didn't know why she didn't want to have any physical contact with other men. It was as if she was subconsciously protecting that person. Realizing this, she smiled bitterly in her heart. It turned out that when you really loved someone to the extreme, you would hate to be touched by anyone other than that person. Originally, she was so free and unrestrained in the modern world and always walked with her good friends shoulder to shoulder. Now she couldn't help but become a chaste woman in ancient times. Of course, this thought just flashed in her mind. Now was not the time to think about these messy things. Fortunately, we didn't come out just now. It turns out that guy has been waiting for us here. Marshal Lung still had some lingering fear when he thought about it. That's true. What was the earthquake just now? From what that guy said, it seems that his array in the west was destroyed. Did His Majesty send someone else to find the exit? Maybe? After all, there are only a few of us here. There can't be a third party. Ning Xuema said in a low voice, "It's not one of us." All eyes were on her, waiting for her to continue. Ning Xuema was walking around the pool. She stared at the corpses in the pool and said, "To destroy the array core here, the person who did it would need to be at least at heaven rank level 8. It must be the same for the other array cores." Everyone was speechless. The top masters in the underworld were only at heaven rank level 7, not level 8. In the entire 6 realms, there were only 4 or 5 people who could reach this level. The former Divine Lord, the current Demon Lord, the demonized Lord Overlord, the Sky Emperor and Yi Tianli. Before they were injured, the Divine Lord had disappeared and the Demon Lord was here. Luo Jiuchen wouldn't destroy their array. Could it be the missing Sky Emperor or Yi Tianli? Everyone was bewildered, but they also breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, it was better to have one more helper than one more enemy. Especially with such a powerful helper. Everyone's spirits were lifted. Ning Xuema said, "Don't worry about who the helper is. Let's destroy this place first." Everyone present had been on the battlefield for a long time. They were used to seeing corpses, so they didn't have much of a reaction when they saw the pile of corpses in the pool. Just looking at the expressions of those corpses made his scalp tingle. How much did he have to suffer to die so miserably? Luo Jiuchen was a demigod, wasn't he? How could he be 100 times more ferocious than a normal demon after being demonized? No one dared to waste any more time. Following Ning Xuema's instructions, they stood in all 4 directions of the pool, ready for battle. After Ning Xuema gave a few simple instructions, she flew up and circled around the pool. The sky splitter in her hand slammed on each corpse, causing each corpse to turn around and face the center of the pool. Although Ning Xuema had never seen the layout of this array core, she vaguely remembered that when she was a secret agent in the modern era, she got a tattered book in Miaojiang. It recorded some ancient evil array diagrams. At that time she flipped through it out of boredom. Her memory was so good that she could remember most of it. Chapter 2255. Because the method of setting up the array was too evil, she did not think that she would need to use it in the future. She threw it in the deepest part of her mind and almost forgot about it. Now that she saw the layout here, she dug it out again. The corpses in the eye of the array should be the experts of the 6 realms when they were alive. They used a special method to make their bodies as cold as ice, and the resentment of their souls formed this ice and snow array. Fortunately, the book also mentioned the method to break this array. When she read it, she thought that it was nonsense, but now it seemed to be true, so she tried her best to give it a try. After she turned all the corpses around, she drew a talisman in her palm and slapped it on the tallest corpse in the middle of the pool. The corpse sank into the ground, but a terrifying rumbling sound came from the ground. The ground under their feet was shaking as if there was a strong earthquake. The few people standing in the 4 corners were almost shaken to the point of falling into the pool. They hurriedly took up stakes to steady themselves, and couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. This rumbling sound was very similar to the one they had heard underground. It seemed that someone really destroyed the array in other places in advance. Damn it. The strong tremor just now alarmed Luo Jiuchen, which made him leave. Now there was another tremor here. Would Luo Jiuchen come back? A moment later, they no longer had the time to think about those messy things, because following this sound, a thick white jade pillar rose up from the pool. With the rise of the white jade pillar, all the corpses in the pool were resurrected. Luo Jiuchen was flying and was about to rush to the west where the strange sound came from. Suddenly he heard a rumbling sound from the north. His feet suddenly stopped moving. How could there be people on both sides breaking the array at the same time? The only person who had the ability to break the array should be Ning Xuema alone. Could it be that when he started the array someone else came in? He quickly went through the people in his mind and suddenly clenched his hands. Yi Tianli. It must be that bastard Yi Tianli. If he had known, he would have found that person and killed him in advance, so as not to ruin his plan. Luo Jiuchen stood in place for a moment, then suddenly let out a long howl, as if he had awakened something or summoned something. Only then did he continue to fly towards the west side of the formation. Under normal circumstances, when the formation eye was destroyed, a ferocious beast guarding the formation eye would appear. These ferocious beasts were all ancient ferocious beasts and were extremely powerful. In addition to the resurrection of those ferocious corpses, in order to truly break the eye of the formation, he needed to completely purify the ferocious corpses and kill the ferocious beasts. It was not easy to do all this. It would be impossible to do it without 6 to 4 hours. Therefore he decided to first deal with the formation breaker in the west and then go to the north to take a look. Of course, just to be on the safe side, he had summoned the Black Python and another helper to the north to stop those formation breakers. Luo Jiuchen's eyes flashed. If it was Ning Xuema and the others in the west, it would be fine, but if it was Yi Tianli, he would use the cruelest method to kill this person and then turn him into the most powerful corpse to become his right-hand man and help him conquer the 6 realms. After a quarter of an hour, he finally reached the formation eye in the west. Then he stood there as if he had been struck by lightning. The west side was the formation eye of the metal attribute. Everything here was golden. Even those ferocious corpses were killed by a special kind of mercury. Their bodies were covered with golden scales and they were not afraid of any magical weapons. Chapter 2256. As for the guardian beast, it was even more incredible. It was called the Devouring Sky. Wherever it appeared, not a single hair was left because it was swallowed by it. Even if a Tyrannosaurus Rex rushed towards it, it would be swallowed alive within a few seconds. No matter who it was, they would have a big headache facing it. If they wanted to completely destroy it, they would need to lose a few layers of skin. Even Luo Jiuchen himself had to ask himself if he had to fight against it for at least 2 hours. From the time he heard the sound of the array breaking to the time he rushed here, it took less than 2 hours. When he came to the periphery of the array core hall, he could still hear the fierce roars and fighting sounds of the fierce beasts inside. But now, the scene that appeared in front of him made him dumbfounded. The devouring sky was still there and its body was more than 10 times bigger. The entire golden hall was filled with its huge body, and those fierce corpses were nowhere to be found. At this moment, the devouring sky was slamming into the pillar in the middle of the golden pool with its blood-red eyes. The moment Luo Jiuchen arrived, the devouring sky had just knocked down the pillar. Rumble crash. Not only did the golden hall collapse, but even the mountain peak below the golden hall collapsed as well. The west side of the array core was completely destroyed. It was broken. Moreover, it was broken by someone who used a very simple method. The person who broke the array didn't intend to fight with the golden corpses and the devouring sky. Instead, he used some kind of beast-controlling technique to control the devouring sky, making it swallow all the golden corpses that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Then he made the devouring sky knock down the pillar that even a few elephants couldn't knock down. The reason why the devouring sky knocked into the pillar was that the golden corpses were highly toxic. A scale on the golden corpses could poison a whale to death, and a claw from it would directly turn it into pus. The devouring sky had swallowed hundreds of such highly toxic things, so it was naturally poisoned. Under the poison, it had a splitting headache, so it slammed into the pillar fell, and the devouring sky was like a lamp that had run out of oil. It fell to the ground with a bang, and the collapsed mountain collapsed again. Simple. Straightforward. Precise. It was unexpected. Luo Jiuchen didn't even see whether the person who broke the array was a group or a flat one, and the array was broken. He was so angry that his face turned green. Who on earth could use such a wicked method? More importantly, who could control the sky-devouring beast? The heaven-devouring beast would only recognize one master in its entire life. Once it recognized its master, everyone else would be its enemy. Luo Jiuchen had spent a tremendous amount of effort to tame this heaven-swallowing beast from the depths of the earth. It should be said that other than him, it shouldn't listen to anyone else. Who was the person who broke the array? He actually had such an ability? Not only did he know how to decipher formations, he also possessed profound beast-taming techniques and bewitching techniques. Luo Jiuchen went through all the experts he knew in his mind. Human Sovereign, Demon King, Beast Emperor Yi Tianli, Ning Xuema. None of them seemed to meet these requirements. The Beast Emperor might be able to do it, but his skills were not that high. He could not open the seal on his own and release the glutton Leviathan unless he had the help of an expert who could break the formation. Could it be that Yi Tianli and the Beast King worked together to do this? However, even though the Beast Emperor looked mighty, he wasn't very courageous. He was more like a fence-sitter, leaning towards whichever side was stronger. Such a person dared to go against him at this moment? But other than these two people working together, Luo Jiuchen really couldn't think of a third person. Chapter 2257. After all, in his heart, Shinjiuli's soul had already scattered, and he wouldn't run out to make trouble again. He quickly circled around the collapsed mountain 3 times, trying to smell the breath of the person who broke the array. But the person who broke the array was extremely cunning and didn't leave any breath. He couldn't find any information about the person who broke the array nearby. Just as he was feeling a little anxious, the big black python's long roar suddenly came from the extreme north. Luo Jiuchen was shocked. Damn it. In his anger, he forgot that the northern array core had also been entered by someone. His figure rose and rushed towards the north. The guardian beast of the northern array core was Taotai. Although Taotai was also gluttonous, he was not interested in those ice corpses. If they wanted to break the northern array core, they had to get rid of these two kinds. The person who broke the array couldn't let Taotai and the ice corpses kill each other. The other side should be able to hold on for a little longer, right? With Ning Xuema's current strength, she could at most fight the Taotai to a draw. As for the 6 underworld generals by her side, they could deal with 1 ice corpse each. However, there were no less than 680 ice corpses. Each of the generals had to deal with over 100 of them. Therefore, not to mention those ice corpses, it was already very good for those underworld generals to protect themselves among the ice corpses. Everything else was just empty talk. In addition, the big black python had also rushed over. Ning Xuema and her party wanted to completely destroy the array core over there, but it was undoubtedly a fool's dream. This was also the reason why Luo Jiuchen was not anxious even though he knew that Ning Xuema and others had gone to break the array. He knew that she couldn't break it. It could only consume her physical strength and kung fu. Of course, her companions would also be consumed. In the end, she would be left alone and couldn't do anything. Luo Jiuchen was very confident at first, but after the western array core was broken by someone using this strange method, he couldn't keep calm anymore. Would the person who broke the array in the west also run to the northern array core to help Ning Xuema and others? With that person's strange method of breaking the array, maybe he could break another one for him in a very short time. Ning Xuema deeply felt that it was better to have no books than to believe in all books. The saying was too damn true. Back then, the title and words of the scroll she saw were mysterious and grand. It even had the aura of an ancient master. However, when she tried to decipher it according to what it said, it was too fucking ridiculous. It said that the north was of the water attribute, and the guardian ferocious beasts in the north were generally of the water attribute. They should be 1,000-year-old flood dragons. As for the ice corpses, they were like walking corpses. They had no thoughts and no brains. Apart from their great strength and savagery, they had no other advantages. Therefore, Ning Xuema automatically thought of these ice corpses as the slow-moving zombies she had seen in zombie movies. They were zombies whose heads could be blown off with a single blow of an axe. As for the 1,000-year flood dragon, although it was powerful, it was nothing in the eyes of the current Ning Xuema. A few days ago, she even killed a 5,000-year flood dragon. He was still using pure swordsmanship without using any spells at all. Therefore, she didn't have any psychological pressure about the 1,000-year flood dragon that might jump out here. She was ready to kill it as soon as it appeared. As for those frozen corpses, Marshal Lung and others were enough. At worst, she could help to kill them after killing the flood dragon. Her plan was very good. However, even though the ideal was plentiful, the reality was not the same. She hit the totem pole that represented the array core with her palm. After that, all the frozen corpses were resurrected in an instant and jumped straight out of the water to the shore. They all moved as fast as the wind. Chapter 2258. All the ice corpses were resurrected in an instant and jumped straight out of the water onto the shore, each of them moving as fast as the wind. Each of them had extraordinary strength, each of them was highly poisonous, and each of them waved their claws with the sound of wind and thunder. Ice corpses being able to control water was one thing, but what was going on with them being able to control thunder? So many zombies being able to summon thunder and lightning balls with just a wave of their hands was very heaven-defying and illogical. Okay. What was even more ridiculous was that the guardian beast that emerged from the totem pole was not a flood dragon, but a monster that Ning Xuema had never seen before. His body was like a sheep, but it was 100 times bigger than a sheep. On its head there were curved horns like sharp knives. Under the two curved horns was the face of a mighty uncle, and there were two bulging cyan bumps where the eyes should be. It had a big mouth with jagged tiger teeth. It obviously had the body of a sheep, but it had 4 human hands. It was just that the hands were not beautiful, and the fingernails on the fingers were blue and purple like ghost claws. What was even stranger was that as soon as the beast jumped out, it let out a long howl. The howl was like the scream of a baby when it was frightened, making Ning Xuema's scalp tighten uncontrollably. As soon as the monster appeared, it occupied most of the hall. It suddenly raised its front paw at Ning Xuema, and Ning Xuema saw a row of bright eyes under its armpits. There were more than a dozen eyes in that row. More than a dozen eyes with more white eyeballs than black eyeballs were staring at her, making the hair on Ning Xuema's back stand on end. Damn, although she did not have a terrible trypophobia, she still felt scared when she saw such a row of eyes. In order not to make herself panic, the moment the monster raised its arm and revealed its eyes, Ning Xuema had already shot a row of ice needles at it. Each needle was aimed at an eye, wanting to blind it and be done with it. But before her row of ice needles could reach the monster sneezed and all the ice needles turned into mist and disappeared in an instant. Ning Xuema, Devil Lord, be careful. It's Taotai. It's the Taotai. There was still a knowledgeable person in the underworld who shouted. But soon he no longer had the time to shout. He was surrounded by 70 to 80 ice corpses, which made it hard for him to breathe. This general of the underworld was also someone who could kill his way through an army of thousands. In his life he had dealt with countless zombies and walking corpses. He had even killed many of those flying zombies that could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground. But this was the first time he had seen such a perverted person. All the magic weapons were useless against them. They would immediately jump back up and rejoin the battle. Fire spells wouldn't work either. These guys had a layer of ice armor on their bodies. Fire couldn't burn them at all. Moreover, there was poison all over their bodies. With a wave of their claws, a lightning ball could be smashed down. Furthermore, he couldn't use his weapon to block it, because the fine iron sword in his hand was conductive. In a situation where he had no other choice, he once used his sword to flick away one of them, electrocuting him so much that his hair stood on end. One ice corpse was enough to give him a headache, but now he was surrounded by a group of ice corpses. One of them could directly tear him apart with a scratch of its claws. There was really no other way. The general summoned a protective magic weapon. The magic weapon was like a leather bag, covering his whole body inside. The claws of the ice corpses scratched the outside of the bag, making his scalp tingle. The other people were not much better. Each of them was surrounded by the ice corpses. After using various spells, they could not hurt them at all, so these people also chose to defend. Chapter 2259. It had to be said that as a general of the underworld, his martial arts were very unique. Because of their physical strength, although their attack power was not the strongest, their defense power was definitely the best. At their level, everyone had a protective treasure. At this moment they used it one after another. It was like a mushroom flower that bloomed among the ice corpses. Devil Master, what should we do? These ice corpses are too powerful. We can't find their weak points. Devil Master, I'm afraid we are no match for these monsters. Why don't we run away? Devil Master, let's leave first and think of a way. After these generals of the underworld opened their protective treasures, although they still needed a lot of strength to support this treasure, at least they had time to say a few words. Ning Xuema simply wanted to curse. Run away. Run away my ass. She was now being chased by this Taotai. She had heard of this Taotai, the leader of the ancient beast. It was said that it could swallow the sun, the moon, and the stars. It was also extremely fierce and could even bite its master at any time. She had heard Bai Zhe mention this beast before. Bai Zhe said that among the beasts, Taotai was the most abnormal one. The 8 mythological beasts were no match for it even if they joined forces. Back then they had suffered a great loss under the claws of Tao Tai. Their flesh was bitten by it and they almost lost their lives. The 8 mythological beasts hated this beast so much, but they could not do anything to it. It was because the disaster it caused was too big and too deep. It could often swallow half a human village in one bite. It was said that Xinjiuli had tried to get rid of it in the past, but it was too cunning and had an abnormal sense of smell. After it suffered a great loss under Xinjiuli's hands and escaped, it refused to be seen by Xinjiuli again. Even from 100 miles away, it could smell the wind and flee. Moreover, its ability to escape and hide was top-notch. Once it escaped, even Xinjiuli would have a hard time finding it. Later this beast disappeared and never appeared in the 6 realms again. Bai Zhe and the rest thought that it had done too much evil and finally suffered the wrath of heaven. Who would have thought that he would appear here? Ning Xuema's kung fu was one of the best in the 6 realms. If she met this Tao Tai outside, she might be able to have an earth-shattering battle with it. But now that she was in this strange array, she couldn't use half of her psychokinesis. After running around for so long, her stomach was growling, and her physical strength was greatly depleted. Under such circumstances, she would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage if she were to fight the #1 ancient ferocious beast. Lightning flashed and thunder roared. When this Tao Tai sneezed, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. The row of eyes under the Taoya's armpits were also not for decoration. With a casual blink, a golden lightning would strike. What's more, there were so many ice corpses around and they would occasionally attack her with their claws. Therefore Ning Xuema was in a very difficult situation. Ning Xuema dodged left and right in the midst of the ice corpses. She had already raised her speed to the maximum, but she still couldn't escape. She naturally saw the situation of the underworld generals. She also had an idea to lead Tao Tai to the pile of ice corpses, wanting to let Tao Tai and the ice corpses have a dog-eat-dog fight. However, this Tao Tai and the ice corpses were very good brothers. They had an extremely tacit understanding with each other. Even if Tao Tai launched a fan-shaped attack, it couldn't attack the ice corpses. Similarly, the poisonous claws of the ice corpses wouldn't grab the wrong target, so they wouldn't attack Tao Tai. Moreover, this Tao Tai was also very unyielding. He was only interested in the leaders and kings. Chapter 2260. Moreover, this Tao Tai was also very stubborn. It was only interested in the leader and the king. It did not care about the netherworld generals who trespassed into its territory. In the process of chasing after Ning Xuema, if a netherworld general's mushroom umbrella happened to block its path, it would use its claw to tear the mushroom umbrella apart and push it to the side. It did not even look at the netherworld general who was pale with fright. It continued to chase after Ning Xuema. Tao Tai was very similar to Yazi. Once it set its eyes on someone, it would be stronger than a dog skin plaster. It would definitely not let go. If Ning Xuema did not rely on her strange body movements and abnormal speed, she was afraid that she would not be able to escape from it. This Tao Tai had a huge body, but its flexibility was comparable to that of a monkey. It jumped up and down, dashed left and right and came and went quickly. It was simply dazzling. In addition, it always had thunder and lightning with it. Ning Xuema was completely chased by it. Not to mention killing it, it was even more difficult to escape from its claws. Escape? She also wanted to escape temporarily, but she could not find an opportunity. She was in a hurry and used the ground drilling technique. However, after the Tao Tai came out, the ground was like a diamond. She could not escape at all. She used the ground drilling technique, but she almost hit the ground. She was caught by 3 to 5 ice corpses, and her toes were also hit by the thunder and lightning balls of the Tao Tai. If she did not have the protection of her body, half of her feet would have been gone. Even so, her toes were burning with pain. It felt like being hit by a hammer. It was so painful that she wanted to stomp her feet. Damn it. She had always been chased by people in her life, but this was the first time that she was chased by a beast to such an extent. Her sky splitter sword was useful in dealing with the ice corpses. In the process of fighting with the Tao Tai, she also killed about 10 of them. However, there were too many ice corpses. Expiating the souls of these corpses would not solve the actual problem. What should she do? What should she do? At this time she could not find a good solution. Her heart was cold. Was she going to die here? No. She still had a son. No matter how hard it was, she could not die. Otherwise, Nianma would become an orphan again. The image of Nianma's big, teary eyes flashed in front of her eyes. His body gained a lot of strength out of nowhere. She sent an ice corpse flying with her sword and was about to turn around and stab the Tao Tai again to find its weak point. Suddenly, the melodious sound of a flute drifted through the air. The sound of the flute had its own unique melody. It sounded like the waves crashing against the shore, or the wind blowing through the bamboo forest. The sound of the flute was originally clear and bright, but this time it was very low and it was very thin. The ice corpses that were beating up Ning Xuema's group suddenly trembled. One by one they stopped. Even the Taotai suddenly pricked up its ears. Unexpectedly, it no longer cared about attacking Ning Xuema. It raised its 2 front paws, revealing 20 pairs of eyes under its armpits. Rumble, 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 it looked left and right as if it was looking for the person playing the flute. Ning Xuema was also stunned when she heard the sound of the flute. Her head exploded and blood rushed to her head. The sound of the flute? This flute sound? Could it be? Could it be? It was him. Did he really come? Did he come back to life? When she jumped into the black hole to seal Zisha, she swore that even if he was immortalized he would be reborn in half a year. Now almost 4 months had passed. 4 months of suffering was like 400 years, but it was less than half a year. Chapter 2261. Now nearly 4 months had passed. 4 months of torment was like 400 years, but it was less than half a year. Would he really be reborn? That heavenly stone really didn't trick her? At this moment, countless questions flashed through Ning Xuema's mind. Her little heart almost jumped to her throat, and her limbs were somewhat soft. Fortunately, Taotai and the ice corpse were attracted by the sound of the flute and didn't take the opportunity to attack her absent-mindedly. Ning Xuema's mind was muddled. Her blood rushed to her head and she wanted to rush out of the door to see where the flute player was. But as luck would have it, that Taoye's huge body was blocking the entrance, completely blocking it. Not to mention Ning Xuema, even a piece of paper wouldn't be able to squeeze out. Taoye's weak point is the 6th eye under its left and right armpits. It can be broken with a needle. Ning Xuema suddenly heard a voice. That voice was tender, and it was the voice of a 10-year-old child. Ning Xuema's whole body stiffened, and her mouth opened slightly. She had never heard this voice before. Even the accent was unfamiliar. It wasn't him? Wasn't it him? But this flute sound? No. This was actually the first time she heard this kind of flute sound and she was not familiar with it. Her heart was like a pot of boiling oil, but now it was like a bucket of ice water was poured over the pot of oil. She couldn't tell if it was cold or hot. Her heart was originally trembling in her throat, but now it was slowly sinking, almost sinking into an unfathomable abyss. In this world, Shinjuli was not the only one who used music to control beasts. Luo Jiuchen could do it, Yi Tianli could do it, and it was said that there was also a mysterious person who lived in seclusion all year round who could do it. Even she could do it a little. She could use music to kill people and she could also attract some rare birds and beasts. But it was because the music was too beautiful that it attracted them, but it couldn't be used to control them. The owner of this flute sound might not be Shinjuli, but the mysterious person in the rumors. If it was him, how could he only appear with the flute sound? He should have appeared with his whole body. The hope that had just risen was ruthlessly broken. Even Ning Xuema, who had experienced countless disasters, was also momentarily absent-minded. However, she reacted quickly and quickly regained her senses. Now was not the time to think about this. Breaking the formation was the most important thing. Hair needle? Using hair as needles? Ning Xuema didn't have time to think. She pulled out a few strands of hair and with a flick of her finger, the strands of hair instantly broke into countless pieces and flew out. Hair was originally the softest thing in the world, but when Ning Xuema flicked it out, it was not inferior to any divine weapon. Countless strands of hair accurately shot into Taoye's corresponding eyes. Wah wah. A series of ear-piercing cries resounded from Taoye's body. This guy jumped several feet into the air. With a rumbling sound, the ceiling of the ice hall trembled from the impact. Then, countless huge ice cubes fell as if it was raining ice cubes. Ning Xuema casually brushed off the falling ice cubes. The sound of the flute continued. The ice corpses seemed to be under the control of the flute and were intoxicated. Even if they were hit by ice cubes, they would immediately jump up and sway in the direction of the flute sound like sunflowers, as if they were doing a square dance. Ning Xuema thought that once Taoye's weak point was pierced, he would directly die. She didn't expect that this guy would not die after falling down, but instead go crazy. His 2 front claws were crazily waving around, and the 20 eyes under his armpits were all blood red. They were desperately rotating, but as if they were blind, they couldn't see anything. Chapter 2262. When a Taotai went berserk, its destructive power was absolutely astonishing. It could no longer tell whether it was an ally or an enemy. As long as it sensed something moving in front of it, it would slap it. No matter who blocked its way, only death awaited them. Those ice corpses were no exception. Ning Xuema and the underworld generals were all very slippery and had already quietly retreated. Only those ice corpses, controlled by the sound of the flute, swayed toward Tao Tai, and were smashed in the head by the crazy Tao Tai. General Lung and the others were speechless. Heavens, the person playing the flute is so powerful. He didn't even need to show up, yet he could make these most ferocious creatures bite each other here. Ning Xuema's heart was on fire. She had already heard that the sound of the flute was coming from outside, but she had no clear sense of direction. It seemed to be left or right, front or back. She didn't know where that person was at all. However, that person seemed to be able to see the scene in the hall. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to command those ice corpses to stretch out their necks and move toward Tao. The ice corpses were poisonous. Although Tao Tai could smash them with his claws, the poison of the ice corpses would inevitably contaminate his claws. Because his eyes hurt, he would rub them with his claws from time to time, so the poison of the ice corpses would also enter his wounded eyes. Tao Ye's roars and screams were even more earth-shattering and frantic. Not only were more than half of the ice corpses destroyed by it, even the core pillar of the formation was crazily attacked by it several times because it had blocked its path several times. Although it hadn't collapsed yet, countless fine lines had appeared on the pillar. As long as it was attacked a few more times, the pillar would be completely shattered, and the formation would be broken. When the big black python received the order to come to the rescue, it saw this scene. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the hall, and all kinds of strange sounds were incessant. Ning Xuema and the others were standing in the passage leading to the hall, watching the bustle with folded arms. The big black python couldn't help but roar in its heart. Didn't the Lord say that Tao Tai and the ice corpses were brothers and would never have conflicts? What was going on now? The big black python's hearing was special. When it turned into its python form, it couldn't receive the sound waves from the flute, so it didn't know what was going on. It had originally received Luo Jiuqin's order to come and check, but now, it only wanted to run away. With its current kung fu, it was no match for Ning Xuema and the others. If it went in, it would only be courting death. It was better to go out and inform the Lord. It came in as a small snake. Now that Ning Xuema and the others' attention was on Tao Tai and the others, they certainly did not see it. It quietly turned around and was about to crawl out again. Swoosh! A streak of red light screamed and arrived, heading straight for the top of its head. That strength, that sound of the wind, simply caused the big black python's soul to scatter. It knew what was good for it. It knew that once the red light pierced its head, it would lose its head. It didn't have time to think carefully in this critical situation. It suddenly rolled over and finally dodged its head. However, it wasn't careful enough to dodge its tail. The red light directly cut into its tail. With a long and mournful cry, a section of the big black python's tail was cut off. Blood gushed out like a fountain, and it revealed its true form on the spot. The several generals of the underworld were stunned at the same time. Holding their weapons in their hands, they didn't know whether to make a move or not. After all, this big black python used to be their young master and also the substitute king of hell. It had once led them to war. Now that it suddenly appeared, they knew that something was wrong, but they didn't dare to make a move for a while. Lead it into the hall. Ning Xuema heard the young man's voice again. Chapter 2263. Her heart skipped a beat. She leaped up and attacked the big black python. At this moment, the big black python was crying out for help as it tried to escape. Unfortunately, Ning Xuema blocked its path. Even if it wasn't injured, it still wouldn't be Ning Xuema's opponent. It was forced to retreat step by step. The generals of the netherworld watched helplessly. They did not know which side to stop. They looked at each other and decided to just watch from the sidelines. The big black python was pressured by Ning Xuema's attacks to the point that it couldn't breathe. It wanted to force the netherworld generals to save it, but it couldn't open its mouth. Its huge body retreated with all its might, and in a moment of carelessness, half of its body fell into the ice hall. That Tao Tai was crazily scratching and clawing around when it suddenly stopped and tripped over the big black python's body, causing it to stumble. It was furious and immediately clawed at it. The front half of the big black python's body was fighting with Ning Xuema. It did not expect Tao Tai to go crazy and grab it. There was another long scream. Half of the big black python's body was cut off by Tao Tai's claw. The smell of blood filled the air, which made Tao Tai even crazier. It directly grabbed the big black python. Help! The big black python was scared out of its wits. It screamed and shouted, "Young master!" General Leng instinctively wanted to step forward. But it was too late. Cao Tai moved faster than lightning. Before General Leng could rush to it, it had already opened its mouth and bit off the big black python's head. The generals of the netherworld were dumbfounded when they saw this bloody scene. General Leng broke out in a cold sweat. His friend pulled him back and said in a low voice, "Young master has already helped the evildoer. The netherworld king does not recognize this son anymore." What he meant was that there was no need to take revenge for such a person. General Leng knew this too. He lowered his head dejectedly. "You're right," Ning Xuema heard the voice again. "Bring them to a temple 200 miles to the east. The temple is the eye of the array in the east. Lure the guardian beasts out and run. Do not fight." The voice was faintly discernible, but it was very methodical when it came to assigning tasks. Ning Xuema's heart was beating wildly. She really wanted to find out where the voice came from and what the owner of the voice looked like. However, she also understood that this person must have his reasons for not showing up. Since he was helping her, there was no need to drag him out. "Let's retreat." Ning Xuema only said one sentence and took the lead to rush out. The others naturally followed suit. Along the way, one of the generals could not help but ask, "Devil Lord, to break the eye of the formation, we must topple that pillar, right?" "We haven't had the time to topple that thing." He had the illusion that they had given up halfway. Ning Xuema said, "Don't worry. That pillar will fall down." She was right, that person should be the one who broke the array core in the west. Since that person could break the array core in the west so easily, he must have a way to break the array in the north. Moreover, this array was just as she had guessed. There were array cores in the east, west, south, and north respectively. If all 4 array cores were broken, the array would be completely broken. Only then would the people trapped in the array be safe. They had just descended the snowy peak when they heard an earth-shattering sound coming from the snowy peak. The entire mountain seemed to have been hit by an atomic bomb and completely collapsed. The huge energy during the collapse caused the snowy peak to be filled with snow and fog, like a mushroom cloud rising. The collapse of the snowy peak naturally caused another huge avalanche. Fortunately, Ning Xuema and the others were fast and prepared, so they managed to avoid it without any danger. Chapter 2264. By the time Luo Jiuqin arrived, everything had already been settled. His hands trembled as he looked at Cao Tai, who was lying dead on the ground like a mountain of flesh. His face could no longer be described as ashen. Cao Tai had also been poisoned to death by the ice corpse's poison. He lay there with a ferocious face as if he had died with his eyes wide open. There was a huge bloody wound on his forehead. Luo Jiuqin dug into the bloody wound, and as he expected, the demon bead inside had disappeared. All these ancient vicious beasts would cultivate a bead with very high energy in their bodies. This bead was the origin of the vicious beast. Once it was taken out, it would die immediately. He had suppressed the vicious beasts in the eye of the array. Firstly, it was to protect the array. Secondly, it was to let the demon beads in their bodies absorb the vitality of everyone trapped in the array, so that their demon beads would become stronger and stronger. This was also the main reason why these vicious beasts were willing to be suppressed here. According to Luo Jiuqin's idea, after the several fierce beasts had sucked all the primordial chi from the people in the array, he would try to absorb the purified primordial chi from their demon pearls. That way his skills would be greatly improved. But now the demon bead had been dug out. It had been dug out. He didn't even know who the opponent was. He turned around in a circle, trying to find the aura of the person who had broken the array, but he still couldn't find it. That person's aura was hidden very well, not revealing the slightest clue. He smelled the aura of Ning Xuema and the others here. Obviously, the ones who had broken into the array at the beginning were indeed Ning Xuema and the others. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Perhaps if he caught up with Ning Xuema and the others, he would be able to find out the person behind them. His figure rose and he immediately followed Ning Xuema's aura. But for some reason, the aura of Ning Xuema and the others suddenly disappeared at the foot of the mountain, and he couldn't smell them at all. Obviously, Ning Xuema and the others had also hidden their tracks. Ning Xuema was an expert in anti-tracking. Her means in this respect were not worse than Xinjiuli's. Luo Jiuqin circled around the area, but he still couldn't determine where they had gone. He stood in place for a moment, then suddenly sneered, turned around and rushed to the easternmost eye of the formation. He had been running behind them all this time and had been too passive. He might as well go to the next eye of the formation and wait for the rabbit to appear. As long as one of the eye of the array was protected, The array could not be broken. As long as he protected one of them, he wasn't afraid that Ning Xuema and the person behind her wouldn't come. If he really couldn't hold on, he still had one last trick up his sleeve. Ning Xuema felt that looking for a small temple in a tropical rainforest was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Yes, she was now at the easternmost point. Unlike the world of ice and snow in the north, this place was a tropical rainforest that stretched as far as the eye could see. Her eyes were filled with various shades of green, and the green was so dense that it was almost flowing out. The rainforest was filled with swamps, poisonous snakes, crocodiles, scorpions, centipedes. All kinds of poisonous and ferocious creatures were everywhere. Moreover, the beasts and birds here were all unusually large. He also looked ferocious. Even a lizard could look like a small dinosaur. It looked like a mutated species after Resident Evil. Fortunately, Ning Xuema and the others were all top masters, and these ferocious beasts couldn't stop their footsteps. The problem was that in such a large and endless rainforest, where was the so-called small temple? Ning Xuema thought of the Hall of the Eye of the Formation in the north, and naturally thought that the east side of the Earth Temple should be very big. As long as she flew around the relevant area, she should be able to find it. Chapter 2265. However, she had already circled the treetops more than 10 times in this area. She had even counted the number of tree stumps below, but she still couldn't find any trace of the Earth Temple. In order to find the target as soon as possible, General Lung and the others had already separated from her. It was relatively faster for them to split up. Of course, in order to make it easier for them to contact each other quickly, Ning Xuema taught them several wolf howls. If they encountered great danger, they would howl 3 times. If they found the Earth Temple, they would howl 6 times. This method was the safest. It would not attract Luo Jiuchen's attention, and it could also send the most clear message. General Lung and the others accepted the order and each chose a direction to search. Ning Xuema was an expert in array formations. Based on her past experience, she deduced that the Earth Temple should be within a radius of 10 miles in the middle of this forest. As they were not far away, they could often see the figures of their companions when they flew over the treetops. Everyone felt more at ease. These people moved quickly. They had already searched the forest within a radius of 10 miles, but they still couldn't find any trace of the Earth Temple. Could it be that she had made a mistake? Not to mention those people, even Ning Xuema was a little doubtful. However, according to the activation of the array core should be nearby. If it was wrong, how wrong could it be? Could it be that the helper gave the wrong answer? Was the array core not the Earth Temple? Those people gathered around Ning Xuema again. General Lung couldn't help but ask, "Devil Master, how can you be sure that the array core here is in the Earth Temple?" Ning Xuema sighed. When the person behind the scenes sent her a voice transmission, he had told her not to reveal any information about him, so she had never mentioned that person's voice transmission. Now that she heard General Lung's question, she still didn't want to reveal it. After thinking for a while, she said, "I made a guess based on my past experience. However, the array core should be within a radius of 10 miles. Everyone look carefully. There's no need to look for any temple. Even those tree holes and underground holes." Everyone split up again. As they had to search carefully, they naturally couldn't fly over the treetops anymore. They all jumped to the ground. The tropical rainforest was unbelievably dense. Not only were there rotten muddy swamps, but there were also countless thorns that were as tall as a person. There was no path in the rainforest. If they wanted to move forward, they would have to cut their own path. It had to be said that the number of animals here was terrifying. In just a short 10-li journey, Ning Xuema encountered 6 lizards the size of dinosaurs, 5 lynx the size of tigers, 2 leopards the size of small elephants, and 7 to 8 poisonous beasts that she couldn't name. Of course, these ferocious beasts were not a threat to her at all. They could be dealt with a casual strike. In the end, all the beasts in the rainforest were probably shocked by Ning Xuema's martial arts and began to flee. Ning Xuema saw with her own eyes that a monkey the size of a gorilla flew past her the moment it saw her and ran away like a wisp of smoke. She suddenly had an idea. It would take too much effort for her to search. If she could catch a ferocious beast with spiritual intelligence and interrogate it, she might be able to get something out of it. It had to be said that she had found the right method. When she was an agent, she had met a mutant who understood the language of beasts. That person had taught her a few words of monkey language. Came in handy now. She caught a little monkey and asked it if there were any buildings that were similar to the Earth Temple in the vicinity. Chapter 2266. She was afraid that the little monkey didn't know what an earth temple was, so she used monkey language to describe the layout of the earth temple. Luckily, the monkey was smart enough to understand. It squeaked, indicating that it knew about this place. Then it stretched out its paw towards Ning Xuema, asking for a reward. It squeaked again, indicating that if she didn't give it a reward, it wouldn't take it. The monkey's head was raised high, looking very proud. Ning Xuema was speechless. This monkey was about to become a spirit. It wanted a reward for leading the way. Monkeys usually liked snacks like bananas, but she didn't even have any food scraps on her, let alone fruits. She searched her pockets but couldn't find anything to give to the monkey. Just as she was considering whether to catch the monkey and force it to give it to her, she looked up and found that the monkey's eyes were staring at her head. One of its paws pointed at her head and squeaked, "I want that." Ning Xuema touched her head and felt a jade hairpin. She subconsciously took it out and shook it in front of the monkey. "You want this?" The monkey nodded its head like a kowtowing bug. Monkeys actually liked hairpins, what a weirdo. Ning Xuema's hairpin was of good quality, but to her, it was something that she could easily get, so she could easily give it away. Since the monkey liked it, then she would give it to it. She wanted to see where it would wear it. The monkey's fur was so short. The monkey happily took it, but it didn't wear it on its head. Instead, it put it under its armpit. Its careful appearance made Ning Xuema want to laugh. The monkey suddenly looked at her scattered hair, blinked its eyes and squeaked a few times. Ning Xuema understood what he meant. This monkey disliked how her hair was disheveled and suggested that she find another hairpin to wear. A woman would be pleased by her bosom friend, but she couldn't find that bosom friend, so she didn't care about her appearance. She was too lazy to wear any jewelry on her head. At most, she would wear a normal hairpin. She didn't have any other jewelry in her storage pouch, except for the jade hairpin. However, it was indeed inconvenient for her to keep her hair down. Ning Xuema casually pulled a branch from the side and casually cut it into a simple wooden hairpin. She raised her hand and was about to pin it on her head. The monkey on the side probably couldn't stand it anymore. It actually took out a golden hairpin out of nowhere and jumped in front of Ning Xuema, holding it up as if it was presenting a treasure to her. When Ning Xuema saw the golden hairpin, she stared blankly. It was actually a phoenix hairpin. The craftsmanship was extremely exquisite. It was glistening yellow, and the phoenix's eyes were inlaid with emeralds. It looked very lifelike. This golden hairpin was much more valuable than the jade hairpin on her head. It seemed that this monkey had a hobby of collecting hairpins. This golden hairpin should have been obtained from another woman, right? The hairpin was really nice, but Ning Xuema didn't want it. She didn't like wearing jewelry that had been used by others. She waved her hand to reject it. Then, she took the wooden hairpin that hadn't undergone any artistic processing and casually tied her hair into a bun. When the monkey saw that she didn't want it, its eyes revealed disappointment. It still held onto the golden hairpin and stubbornly refused to take it back. It squeaked a few more times, meaning that if she didn't accept it, it wouldn't lead the way for her. Chapter 2267. Ning Xuema absolutely did not expect that she would be able to catch such a perverted monkey. She was anxious to break the array and was too lazy to talk to the monkey. She casually took the hairpin and threw it into her storage bag. "Alright, I'll take it. Let's go." In her direction, she could still hear the sounds of her companions being attacked by fierce beasts. However, those people were not weak. No matter how fierce the fierce beasts here were, they could not hurt them. Ning Xuema planned to follow the monkey to find the local temple and call them over. However, the monkey was very stubborn. It insisted that Ning Xuema put on the golden hairpin it gave her and let it see. Otherwise, it would rather die than lead the way. Ning Xuema was helpless against the monkey. She could only unwillingly put her hand into her storage bag. After a while, she took out the golden hairpin and put it on her head. The golden hairpin's tassel dangled beside her cheeks. The monkey looked at her and squeaked a few times. It was actually praising her for being beautiful. Being praised by a monkey, Ning Xuema did not know whether she should cry or laugh. The monkey had achieved its goal. It no longer talked and skipped in front to lead the way. Along the way, they naturally encountered a few fierce beasts that wanted to attack the monkey. The monkey was very clever and slippery. Every time danger came, it would jump behind Ning Xuema to seek protection. After Ning Xuema dealt with the beasts in 2 or 3 moves, it seemed to be frightened. It simply walked side by side with Ning Xuema. One of its little paws even wanted to hold Ning Xuema's hand. Although it was a small monkey, it was still a mutated monkey. It was about 1.56 meters tall and looked like a child. If Ning Xuemo really held its hand, she would not be tired. Ning Xuema only raised her hand and patted its head. She did not hold its paws. The little monkey did not give up and held her hand several times. It finally gave up and walked side by side with her. The monkey led Ning Xuema left and right in the forest. After walking for more than 15 minutes, they arrived in front of a big tree. These trees were unremarkable in this forest. Could be said that they were everywhere. Even the holes in the middle of the trees were ordinary. There was nothing special about them. However, the monkey stopped and raised its head to look at the 2-foot square tree hole. Ning Xuema was full of doubts. She was looking for the earth temple. Could it be that the temple was in this tree hole? But this tree hole was too small. How small must the temple be to hide in here? Just as she was about to fly up to take a look, she suddenly heard a roar from far away, and the ground beneath her feet shook again. This feeling was exactly the same as when the array core in the west was broken. Ning Xuema's eyes lit up. Could it be that the formation eye in the south had already been broken? According to her conjecture, this array should have 4 array cores. Now, 3 of them had already been broken, and only the one on her side was left. The monkey's body stiffened from the sudden tremor, and it flew up to the tree. Ning Xuema also flew up to the top of the tree. She shaded her eyes with her hand and looked towards the south. She could faintly see that the clouds there were indeed abnormal. The wind and clouds were changing rapidly. Her lips curled into a smile. The little monkey rushed to her side and squeaked. It tugged at her sleeve, implying that she should go to the tree hole with it. Ning Xuema glanced at it and nodded slightly. Then she flew down and flew towards the tree hole. The little monkey followed closely behind. Ning Xuema arrived at the tree hole and looked inside. Her heart skipped a beat. Chapter 2268. The tree hole was not too deep. With her eyesight she could see all the way to the bottom. At the bottom of the tree hole there was a temple. It was indeed an earth temple, but it was pocket-sized. It looked like a model. Although it was small, it had all the essentials. There were doors, windows, a plaque, a front hall, and a back hall. Ning Xuema had no doubt that there was a pocket-sized Earth Lord inside. However, she reckoned that even a rabbit would not be able to enter such a temple, let alone a person. The monkey pointed at the temple and squeaked proudly as if it was asking for credit. Ning Xuema patted its head again, indicating for it to be quiet. The monkey widened its eyes and looked at her. The monkey's eyes were yellowish-brown. When it moved slightly, there seemed to be light waves moving around like a whirlpool in the Yellow River wanting to swallow people. Ning Xuema did not look at it. She only patrolled at the entrance of the tree hole, as if she was checking something. The monkey was impatient. It urged her to go in and take a look. It even pulled her sleeves. Ning Xuema naturally would not let it pull her. She thought for a moment and instructed it, "This temple is too small. I can carry it with one hand when I go in. Go in and take a look. See if you can enter this small temple." The monkey looked at her for a moment, nodded, and jumped in as expected. The moment it jumped in, Ning Xuema suddenly moved. She raised her hand and set up a wizardry barrier on the tree hole, sealing the tree hole. The monkey was shocked and rushed up again. However, it was blocked by the wizardry barrier. Could not come out at all. It seemed to be very surprised. Its monkey claws grabbed the uneven tree trunk and looked at her with its eyes wide open. It squeaked. It was obviously asking her what she wanted to do. Why did she seal it inside? Ning Xuema looked at it with a gentle gaze. This earth temple is going to be destroyed. However, it is a temple after all. I'm afraid that the Earth Lord inside will blame me. Therefore, I have to give him a sacrifice. You are smart and can be the sacrifice. Remember to put in a good word for me when you see the Earth Lord. As she said that, she used her telekinesis on her palms and pressed them on the tree trunk. A raging flame shot out from her palm and burned towards the tree. Logically speaking, the trees in this tropical rainforest were abnormally humid. The leaves were green and the trunks were full of water, so it was not easy for them to burn. It would be very difficult to set a tree on fire with a torch without pouring gasoline on it. However, the fire emitted from Ning Xuema's palm was the genuine three senses true fire. This kind of fire could even melt iron into molten iron, let alone a tree. This time, Ning Xuema had used the highest level of Samadhi true fire, aiming to burn the tree to ashes. More importantly, she wanted to burn the little monkey in the tree hole to ashes. However, her wishful thinking obviously fell through. As soon as the Samadhi true fire emerged from her palm, the trunk of the big tree flashed. Unexpectedly, from top to bottom, a layer of blue enchantment sprinkled down. The enchantment blocked Ning Xuema's Samadhi True Fire, extinguishing the fire in an instant. Heavenly Water. This water was the nemesis of the Samadhi True Fire. Luo Jiuchen was really cunning. He did things without leaving any loopholes. He actually set this up on the tree. Ning Xuema did not stop at all. As soon as the Samadhi True Fire in her palm was extinguished, her sky splitter sword shot out. With a wave of the wind, the sword tip shone brightly. It produced a 3 feet long sword light that cut horizontally towards the tree. When the sword was about to reach the tree trunk, the sword light instantly turned into hundreds of sword lights, each one cutting across a place. This sword contained the essence of all of Ning Xuema's martial arts. Not to mention a tree, even a stone mountain would be cut into pieces by her. Chapter 2269. Moreover, her sword was as dense as rain. If she cut the tree directly, the tree would probably be cut into pieces. Her sword had the dual attributes of metal and earth. Earth suppressed water and metal suppressed wood. It should be the nemesis of the tree which covered the sky and water. Countless sword lights cut into the tree. As the saying goes, if you cut water with a knife, it will flow even faster. Her sword cut into Lan Yingying's wizardry barrier. A few of her sword lights broke through the barrier and cut into the tree directly. The tree trembled and groaned like a human being. There were a few more wounds on the tree and bright red blood flowed out from the wounds. The tree was a spirit. Ning Xuema was about to cut the tree again when a purple light suddenly appeared from the tree. With a bang, the wizardry barrier set by Ning Xuema at the entrance of the tree broke. A figure jumped out and landed in front of Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema took a step back and sneered. Finally, you stopped pretending? That person's appearance was absolutely beautiful. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. His pair of phoenix eyes slightly narrowed, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a soul-stirring smile. Little Xuema, how did you recognize me? He thought that he was perfect at pretending to be a monkey. Every move he made was no different from a real monkey. Even the monkey's body was real. How did she recognize him? Ning Xuema looked at this person who seemed to be haunting her like a ghost. She faintly smiled. Even if I peel off your skin, I'll be able to recognize your bones. His disguise as a monkey was indeed marvelous, but it was extremely difficult to hide from Ning Xuema's eyes. Besides, how could a monkey be so smart? A normal monkey would not try to flirt with her like this. He would not use the mind-manipulating spell. He just took over the monkey's body and wanted to use his eyes to capture her soul. Did he really think that she was stupid? She dealt with him calmly because she wanted to beat him at his own game. That person was naturally Luo Jiuchen. When he heard Ning Xuema's words, his eyes rippled like water and he smiled. Little Xuema, so you still have deep feelings for me? Otherwise, you wouldn't be so familiar with me? Ning Xuema was too lazy to say these words to him. She raised the corner of her lips and said, I think I can be more affectionate to you. With a wave of his hand, the treasured sword spun in the air and countless sword lights shot towards Luo Jiuchen like a torrential storm. Luo Jiuchen's body was like a tender willow swaying in the wind. His body kept spinning in the sword light. There were so many sword lights, but none of them managed to cut him. He sighed softly and said, Little Xuema, why do you want to kill me the moment you see me? His figure flashed and he suddenly pounced towards Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema naturally would not let him pounce on her. Her treasured sword swept horizontally. As long as he pounced on her, he would directly meet her sword. Ning Xuema thought that she could force him back, but she did not expect that he would not dodge and directly pounce on her sword. Then Ning Xuema saw the strangest scene. Luo Jiuchen was cut in half by her treasured sword. The two halves of his body each grabbed one of her arms and suddenly turned back. Come with me. Ning Xuema's eyes blurred. Her eyes were filled with green light. She fell into a green cloud and then fell straight down. The two halves of Luo Jiuchen's body were still strangely wrapped around her arm like a snake, making it impossible for her to break free. She could only watch as the green on both sides surged like a tide. Her body seemed to have fallen into a boundless green sea, falling towards the deepest part. Little Xuema, if I want to go to hell, then I want you to accompany me. Chapter 2270. Little Xuema, if I want to go to hell, I want you to accompany me. Luo Jiuchen whispered in her ear. His voice was full of laughter, but it was also full of domineering determination. Ning Xuema also used various spells to try to get rid of him during the process of falling, but this guy was like a dogskin plaster, she couldn't get rid of him at all. Plop. In the end, Ning Xuema fell into a rippling pool of green duckweed, and then she couldn't help but stick to a pillar. Then her body suddenly loosened and Luo Jiuchen finally let go of her. Almost at the same time, a transparent cover covered Ning Xuema and the pillar. The two halves of Luo Jiuchen's body instantly merged into one outside the cover. His handsome face was close to the cover and he winked at Ning Xuema. "Little Xuema, this is the Eastern Array core that you have been longing for. What do you think? Is my design beautiful enough?" Ning Xuema secretly took a breath. In this cover she could directly breathe, but her body seemed to be wrapped around by countless chains so she couldn't move at all. She looked at him. "What do you want? What kind of evil martial arts did this bastard practice now? His body could be cut in half but he could still recover. Would it be difficult for him to live if he was cut into 18 or 19 pieces?" Luo Jiuchen stretched out his jade-like hand and seemed to be touching her pretty face through the cover. What he said was half true and half false. "Little Xuema, when I solve all the problems, I will come to marry you. I will arrange this place to be the bridal chamber in the water and complete the wedding with you. Now, be obedient and be the guardian of my array core." Ning Xuema's face changed. Through the cover, she had already seen that there were green corpses around her, one next to another. What was even more strange was that these corpses had a long fish tail that swayed gently around her. Ning Xuema was no stranger to this layout. It was similar to what she saw in the ice pool in the north. Needless to say, this was the array core and the pillar behind her was the key to breaking the array. Every pillar had a totem on it, and this totem was the symbol of the guardian beast. Ning Xuema could already feel that the pillar behind her was uneven and had many complicated patterns. She wanted to turn her head around to take a look, but she couldn't. Sigh. "Little Xuema, even now you still want to break my array? Do you know that once the array core is activated, the guardian beast will sacrifice you first when it comes out?" In the water, Luo Jiuchen held a fan in his hand. He looked at her with a smile that was not a smile, but the words he said were incomparably cruel. "Little Xuema, the earth spirits in the earth temple do not need any sacrifices, but the guardian beasts do. If the formation cores are not activated, then the sacrificial offerings will still be alive and well. However, once they are activated, the formation guardian beasts will first eat the sacrificial offerings and then appear. The 3 formation cores have already been broken, so naturally the sacrificial offerings must have been eaten by the formation guardian beasts." He paused for a moment, then suddenly smiled and asked, "Little Xuema, do you want to know who are the sacrificial offerings in the 3 formation cores?" Ning Xuema pursed her lips and didn't answer. Luo Jiuchen continued, "Speaking of which, those 3 are your acquaintances. Guess who they are?" Ning Xuema closed her eyes. She didn't want to guess at all. Luo Jiuchen raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Aren't you curious?" Ning Xuema didn't even open her eyes. It was not that she wasn't curious, but she felt that most of what Luo Jiuchen said was false. Chapter 2271. Ning Xuema did not even open her eyes. It was not that she was not curious, but she felt that most of what Luo Jiuchen said was false. For example, the sacrifice of 3 acquaintances. Even if it was true, the 3 acquaintances were already dead, so it was useless for her to know. If it was false, she did not need to know. Luo Jiuchen sighed, "Little Xuema, I didn't expect you to be so cold-blooded. Well, I will let you see who the 3 people are with your own eyes. By the way, I will let you see how they are eaten by the guardian beast. Well, the scene is probably bloody. Little Xuema, you have to be mentally prepared." He waved his hand beside him, and the rolling waves around him gradually condensed into a water mirror. The mirror shook, and figures gradually flashed out. After a quarter of an hour, the water mirror finally disappeared, and the surroundings returned to the normal green color. Ning Xuema's face was slightly pale, and her fingers were clenched by her side. She saw 3 people. 3 people who were tied to the pillar together like she was now. The one on the golden pillar in the west was the Heaven Emperor Yin Lang, and the one on the red pillar in the south was the human sovereign of the mortal realm. The most important thing was that the person on the silver pillar in the north was actually Yi Tianli. Yi Tianli, who had been exploring the 6 realms but had not been heard from. These 3 people were originally tied to the pillar, and each of them was trying to escape. They struggled desperately to break the chains on their bodies, and their bodies were covered with blood, but they could not break free at all. At this moment, the person who broke the array arrived. Ning Xuema stared blankly as she slapped the totem pole. Then the Taotai slowly appeared on top of the totem pole. It slowly opened its mouth and bit down on the struggling Yi Tianli. She watched as the Taotai bit Yi Tianli into 2 halves, and then swallowed him until there was not even a trace of him left. The horrible chewing sound seemed to be ringing in her ears. When Ning Xuema saw this scene, cold sweat came out on her forehead. As for the other two people, after the formation-breaking hand slapped the totem pole, an ancient ferocious beast emerged from the totem pole and ate the two of them. Especially the sky-devouring totem on the golden totem pole in the west. It squashed the celestial the arch and swallowed him whole. The scene was so bloody and cruel that even Ning Xuema, who was used to killing, felt a chill run down her spine and her feet. Luo Jiuqin kept looking at her. When the water mirror disappeared, he smiled and said, "Little Xuema, I heard that Yi Tianli is very good to you. He almost got engaged to you that day. Even if you broke his arm, he didn't hold any grudges against you. He was even willing to be a spy by the Sky Emperor's side for you. Tsk, it can be said that he had deep feelings for you. Dying in your hands today can be considered a worthy death. I think if he knew that the fatal palm strike was from you, he would have no regrets." These words were simply stabbing a knife into her heart. Ning Xuema looked at him coldly. There was not much expression on her pretty face and she did not say a word. Luo Jiuqin's eyes flashed with a touch of disappointment. He thought that Ning Xuema's face would collapse, but he did not expect. He tilted his ear to listen and said with a smile, "Your companions are still bumping into each other in the forest. They may not be able to bump into here even if they bump into each other for a few days and nights." He looked at Ning Xuema gently. "As long as they don't come here and destroy the array core here, you are safe. When I get what I want, I will remove the array here and then I will let you out." Chapter 2272. He touched the cover with his fingers as if he wanted to touch Ning Xuema's lips. "Little Xuema, I really don't want to hurt you. I like you so much." Ning Xuema was too lazy to talk to him. This person's love was too perverted. She didn't have the fortune to enjoy it. Luo Jiuqin sighed again. "Xuema, I actually still have a lot of things to do. I can't keep watching you here. I'm not afraid of anything else. I'm just afraid that someone will break in and destroy the array core here while I'm away. Then you won't be able to keep your life." Ning Xuema raised her eyebrows and looked at him. "So?" Luo Jiuqin's eyes were like water waves. "Xuema, why don't you inform all your friends not to destroy this array core?" He sighed. "You know, I'm doing this for your own good." Ning Xuema looked at him with a faint smile. "Who do you want me to inform? The one who broke two of your array cores with just a wave of his hand?" Luo Jiuqin looked at her. "I think you should inform him the most. Otherwise once he breaks in you." Ning Xuema chuckled. "Since you don't want me to be swallowed by a beast, why don't you inform him?" Luo Jiuqin asked. "It doesn't matter if I inform him. I'm just afraid that he won't believe me. I'm also afraid that your friendship with him isn't deep enough. It'll be bad if he doesn't care about your life and death." After saying this, he stared at Ning Xuema's face, not letting go of any expression on her face. Actually, what he wanted the most was to dig out the details of that person from Ning Xuema's mouth. He also knew that if he asked her directly, she would definitely not answer him with her IQ. Therefore, he beat around the bush, intending to take advantage of Ning Xuema's inattentiveness to fish out some information. However, it was clear that he had miscalculated. Ning Xuema's expression did not change from beginning to end. Her words were also ambiguous, making it impossible for him to guess. Luo Jiuqin said a few more words to her, but still didn't get the information he wanted. Looking at Ning Xuema again, he almost had a headache. Such a cunning girl made him speechless, but he couldn't do anything to her at the moment. He sneered and finally said, "Little Xuema, don't tell me you don't even know who he is?" Ning Xuema smiled. "You don't seem to know either." Luo Jiuqin choked and snorted. "I'll find out sooner or later. He would definitely come here. But if I can't stop him from breaking the array, you can." Ning Xuema closed her eyes. "Then I'll just consider myself unlucky." Luo Jiuqin. He didn't get any information about that person from Ning Xuema. His eyes flashed and with a splash, he left the lush green pond. Tranquility returned to the pool. The water here seemed to be filled with green algae. No, it wasn't green algae. It was green tiny water worms. The corpses were contaminated with these water worms, which were wriggling. Ning Xuema's scalp was a little tight. She closed her eyes, pursed her lips, and felt cold in her heart. Luo Jiuqin's kung fu had improved a lot compared to 50,000 years ago. Although he used a lot of bad moves 50,000 years ago when he really fought with people, the moves he used were still normal without any evil or strange moves. But this time, not only had his psyche power more than doubled, But even the moves he used were strange and evil, which was unexpected and impossible to guard against. Just like this time, she didn't expect that he could still entangle her after being split in half. When his two halves came up, she had the illusion of being entangled by a poisonous snake. Chapter 2273. Just like this time, she didn't think that he would still be able to entangle her even after being split into two. When his two halves wrapped around her, she had the illusion of being entangled by a poisonous snake. It was slippery and cold. It didn't look like a human's body at all. What was even stranger was that he was able to fuse back together so quickly as if nothing had happened. He didn't look like he was injured at all. When Ning Xuema was entangled by the two halves of his body, if she really wanted to break free, she would have been able to do so. However, at that moment she made a risky decision. She felt that once Luo Jiuchen restrained her, he would definitely bring her to the eye of the array to show off. At that time, it wouldn't be too late for her to suddenly activate the mechanism of the array. She had already secretly tried in front of the big tree earlier. There was an array on the big tree and she couldn't break through it at the moment, so she couldn't reach the eye of the array. If Luo Jiuchen could take the initiative to bring her in, that would be the best. What she didn't expect was that Luo Jiuchen would directly lock her to the pillar. She was careless and lost the opportunity. If she wanted to break free now, it would be even more difficult. She raised her head and looked up. The pool wasn't deep, but she couldn't see the top. She could only see a piece of green. She tried her best to use her spiritual sense to sense the totem behind her and trace the patterns on it. It seemed to be a bird, but she couldn't feel what kind of bird it was. She could only feel a pattern that looked like a wing. She began to look at the dark green chains that were binding her. She couldn't tell what material it was made of. It was tightly binding her. It didn't pierce into her skin and she couldn't break free. She closed her eyes and began to use various methods to get rid of the chains. She used the 3 true flames to burn it. She used the sky splitter sword to cut it. She used the bone shrinking technique to shrink her body. She even used the soul shedding technique. But it was useless. All the methods were useless. This chain also locked her soul, making it impossible for her primordial spirit to leave her body. Ning Xuema thought of the scene she saw in the water mirror and her heart tightened. Those people should have thought of various methods when they were trapped, right? But they could only wait for death to come. She thought of Yi Tianli again and her heart twitched. This person had sacrificed so much for her without any complaints or regrets. Could it be that in the end he had indirectly died in her hands? He should have heard the conversation between him and the people from the netherworld in the hall, right? His acupoint must have been sealed, so he couldn't speak or make any noise. How did he feel when he saw her slamming her palm down on the stone pillar? Ning Xuema didn't want to think about it anymore. The image of the flute player appeared in her mind again. He sounded like he was 12 or 13 years old. He played the flute to perfection and harmonized with the formation. Judging from the speed at which he broke the formation, she could tell that he was very fast. She closed her eyes slightly. Apart from the difference in age and voice, the rest of the features were really similar to Xinjiuli's. She almost thought that he was back. But if it was him, why didn't he come out to see her? Only commanding from the shadows? Moreover, he commanded her to come to the east while he himself went to the south. It was clear that they wanted to split up and break the formation on their own. If Xinjiuli came back to life, he should be by her side, and the two of them should work together to break the array, right? How could he bear to split up with her? Wasn't he afraid that she would suffer a fate worse than death if she fell into Luo Jiuchen's hands? Although splitting up was the fastest way to break the formation and could even confuse Luo Jiuchen, but in this way her situation would be more dangerous. Chapter 2274. Although splitting up was the fastest way to break the array and could even confuse Luo Jiuchen, it would put her in a more dangerous situation. With Xinjiuli's feelings for her, he wouldn't do that, right? She let out a sigh of relief. So that person wasn't Xinjiuli, right? Maybe that person was the hermit who didn't even have a name in the rumors? She didn't know what kind of person that person was. She had cooperated with him, but she didn't even see his shadow. It was a failure. It seemed that Luo Jiuchen didn't see that person either. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tried so hard to get information from her. Thinking of this, she suddenly thought of something and her eyes widened. No, this wasn't right. Since Luo Jiuchen could see her every move in the water mirror and reproduce the scene of Yi Tianli and the other two tied to the pillars, why couldn't he also record the image of the person who broke the array? Logically speaking, he should be able to see the mysterious person behind the scenes through the water mirror. But he didn't. Then, there were only two possibilities for this to happen. First, everything he showed her in the water mirror was fake. Luo Jiuchen made it up to fool them. Second, Luo Jiuchen's water mirror was more like a camera, which was only installed in a specific area. Only when someone entered this specific area would they be recorded. For example, it was most likely installed around these totem poles. Ning Xuema tried hard to think about the position of the people tied to the totem poles in the water mirror and then estimated the approximate position of the camera. Then she looked at several possible positions one by one. Nothing. There was nothing in these positions except for the green water and green corpses. The camera couldn't have been installed on the corpses. After all, the closest corpse to Ning Xuema was a meter away. Within this distance, the water was filled with green insects. If there really was a camera, then the scene it took would definitely be green. Ning Xuema had observed the water in the north. In addition to being frighteningly cold, the color of the water was not very transparent. It was a little blue like the color of the sea. In the picture of Yi Tianli being tied up that Luo Jiuchen showed her, the picture was very clear and there was no feeling of water ripples. It looked like it was taken in an ordinary space. Could it be that everything in the mirror was fake? If it was all fake, then perhaps everything about Yi Tianli was also fake. Luo Jiuchen wanted to disturb her state of mind. However, once this totem pole was hit by someone and activated the mechanism, it was true that ferocious beasts would appear. Therefore, she was in a very bad situation right now. She had already taught General Lung and the others how to break the array. Once they came in, she was afraid that they would break the array immediately. If she really became a sacrifice, that would be too unfair. No, she could speak. Once General Lung or the mysterious flute player came in, she would shout a few times. As long as they could hear her, everything would be fine. While she was pondering, she suddenly heard some movement outside. Plop, plop. It was as if several people had fallen in. Damn it. There was actually a mechanism. My head is dizzy. Someone cursed. Hey old Hu, how did you get in? You're covered in dirt. Don't even mention it. I stepped on a green rope trap and I had to use earth escape. When I opened my eyes, I was already here. Devil Lord, your face is a little pale. Are you okay? I'm fine, General Lung. I saw that you had a bad fall. Are you okay? A clear voice sounded. It was magnetic and pleasant. Chapter 2275. Ning Xuema, who was in the underwater cover, suddenly felt cold all over. That was her own voice. Someone was impersonating her. She didn't even need to think to know who was impersonating her. Luo Jiuchen. This bastard actually impersonated her and mingled with General Lung and the others. What exactly was he planning? Hey, this place looks so familiar. Old Hu exclaimed. Did we accidentally break into the center of the array? Looks like it. Look at these corpses. Other than the different colors, everything else is the same. General Lung said in a low voice with a hint of surprise. This is really a case of traveling far and wide looking for something, only to find it by sheer luck. It seems that the heavens are protecting us. As long as we destroy the center of the array will be completely broken, right? Those people should be saved. We have finally fulfilled our mission. Ning Xuema listened carefully. Very good. The 6 people from the underworld had all entered. Not a single one was missing. Devil Master, let's break the center of the array. I seem to have heard the sound of the array being broken from the south. I think the flute player must have succeeded in splitting up with us. As long as we break this place, we will be saved. Yes, we finally see hope. Let's do it now, the 6 of them urged one after another. Obviously they were urging the fake Ning Xuema. The fake Ning Xuema had been listening silently. After a while she sighed. We can do it, but the guardian beasts here are too powerful. Look at the few of you, you were injured in the battle just now. You should recover your strength first before breaking the array. Devil Master, our injuries are not important. Breaking the array is more important. Didn't you just say that we just need to open the center of the array and lure the guardian beasts out? I think the flute player will still use the sound of the flute to control the guardian beasts and the green-haired corpses to kill each other. Old Hu was impatient and quickly said. Control the sound of the flute? The fake Ning Xuema's voice was a little strange. After a pause, she asked, Have you seen the Divine Lord? He destroyed the formation core in the south, so he should be here soon, right? The 6 people were obviously surprised. Their voices trembled with joy. Divine Lord? Devil Lord, the flute player is the Divine Venerable? Did you see him? Heavens, didn't his soul scatter? He's alive again. Devil Master, are you sure it's him? God, are we dreaming? If the Supreme Divinity is here, we will be saved. The Netherworld will be saved. The six of them spoke one after another. Everyone was pleasantly surprised, and some of them even had tears in their eyes. That kind of state was naturally revealed and definitely not faked. The fake Ning Xuema was naturally Luo Jiuqin's disguise. His disguise skill was amazing and could achieve the effect of passing off as the real one. If one hadn't reached the level of Ning Xuema and Xin Jiuli, one naturally wouldn't be able to see through his disguise. He disguised himself as Ning Xuema because he wanted to get information about the person behind this from these people. He thought that these people had seen the mysterious person before. But he didn't expect. Luo Jiuqin and Xin Jiuli had been rivals for so many years, so he was naturally very familiar with the kung fu that Xin Jiuli was good at. He knew that Xin Jiuli had the ability to control all beasts with the sound of the flute. So when he heard that the person behind this could play the flute, the first person that flashed in his mind was Xin Jiuli. Chapter 2276. He was a demigod, so he understood the rules of God's life and death very well. He knew that once a god died, he would die for real and would not come back to life. Therefore, after he confirmed that Xin Jiuli's soul had been destroyed, he did not think that Xin Jiuli would come back to life. No matter what kind of enemy he encountered, he did not think that it was him. When he first heard that the mysterious person behind them was the flute player, he thought that Xin Jiuli had come back to life. But now, after seeing the expressions of these people, he was not so sure. He asked them a few more questions and confirmed that not only did these people not see the mysterious flute player, but even Ning Xuema had not seen him. In other words, the mysterious person had not shown his face at all. He was surprised and doubtful. If Xin Jiuli had really come back, even if he did not see the others, he would at least see Ning Xuema. With his feelings for Ning Xuema, at least he would stay by Ning Xuema's side to protect her, instead of leaving her alone here. It was so dangerous. Was he not afraid that something would happen to her? Maybe it was not him? Then who could it be? Who would use the flute to control thousands of beasts? His mind was uncertain and he was a little lost in thought. The six people from the underworld were a little anxious. They urged Ning Xuema to quickly activate the array core to break the array. Luo Jiuqin smiled. I'm afraid now is not a good time to activate the array core. If we activate the array core, the guardian beasts will appear, and these dead bodies will come back to life. If the flute player does not arrive in time, I'm afraid we will all be in danger. The six members of the nether dimension glanced at each other and deeply agreed. They still felt a lingering fear when they thought about the scene they encountered when they destroyed the formation core in the north. If the flute player hadn't arrived in time, then they would have probably suffered heavy casualties. The six people were discussing there. Some suggested activating the array core now, while others suggested waiting. Luo Jiuqin looked at them coldly and did not interrupt. Luo Jiuqin sighed. After all, we're here to save you from the underworld. It's better for you to make the decision. He kicked the ball back to the other party. Ning Xuema, who was underwater, heard their conversation and her heart tightened. She knew that Luo Jiuqin was trying to get information from those people, and she also knew that he was setting a trap for those people. She didn't dare to make a sound. If she made a sound now, not only would she not be able to save herself, she would also cause the lives of those people to be lost in an instant. However, with her current situation, where was she going to find help? The flute player? Would he be able to recognize this fake? If he could rush over in time, she wondered if he would have any misgivings if she yelled at him. The flute player spoke concisely as if he was only here to break the array. He probably did not care about her life or death. Hundreds of thoughts flashed through her mind. While she was thinking about all these messy things, she was also desperately trying to find a way to untie this strange rope. She used almost every method she could think of, but she still couldn't break free. Little Xuema, how do you feel? You're wholeheartedly thinking for them and working hard to save the underworld, but now they're talking about taking your life. No one cares about your life or death. Luo Jiuqin suddenly transmitted his voice, and there was a touch of pity in his voice. Ning Xuema suddenly sneered and didn't say anything. Little Xuema, what are you laughing at? Do you think I'm right? Ning Xuema laughed again. Yes, you're right. You're right. So what? I'm happy to do it. Chapter 2277. What a stubborn little girl. Little Xuema, I'll give you another chance. If you agree to marry me, I'll let you go. You should know that I've always liked you. I'm going crazy. Ning Xuema inwardly rolled her eyes. This bastard's love is really unique. Your so-called liking me is to kill me? Luo Jiuqin sighed. Little Shuema, you've always wanted to kill me. I had no choice but to do this. Ning Shuema chuckled. No choice? If you didn't go on the evil path, why would I want to kill you? Luo Jiuqin, I don't understand. Your kung fu is already very high. I'm afraid you're already the best in the world. Why do you still practice these wicked kung fu? What do you want? Luo Jiuqin narrowed his eyes. So what if I'm the best? Little Shuema, if I don't use any means, will you marry me? Be my wife. You've done so many things just to force me to marry you? Were you kidding? You have countless ways to force me. Why do you have to destroy your own foundation and become a demon? You must have other purposes. Luo Jiuqin laughed. Little Shuema is really smart. I can't hide anything from you. Yes, I do have other purposes. I'm not inferior to Shinjioli in terms of aptitude and wisdom. Why do I always have to submit to him? When he was alive, he suppressed me. Now that he's dead, the natural law doesn't recognize me. The natural law is unfair. Why do I have to guard the natural law? I not only want to be the strongest in the 6 realms, but also the natural law that completely dominates the world. This was really big talk. Ning Shuema actually didn't know what the natural law was. It seemed to be a kind of law that controlled the general pattern of the 6 realms. Just like what people often said about fate. Now it seemed that the natural law was like fate. It was a kind of law, and not a god. The natural law was not benevolent and treated all things as straw dogs. This was nothing more than the indignation of someone who had suffered injustice from the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao maintained the rise and fall of the entire 6 realms, not the honor and fairness of a few people. Otherwise, with Shinjiuli's character, if the heavenly Tao was truly evil, why would he be willing to be the guardian? How is it? If you don't seize this opportunity now, it will really be too late. Your companions seem to have learned how to activate the Array Eye. When the Array Guardian Beast is released, it will eat you first and then it will eat them. You are all extremely strong psychokinesis. One of you is equivalent to 1,000 people. When the time comes, I will lock the Array Guardian Beast in. If I can't, I will directly kill it and get its Naiden. It is also very good. Luo Jiuqin urged. Ning Shuema's heart skipped a beat. That's not right. She hadn't covered her voice when she was talking to Luo Jiuqin. Logically speaking, her voice should have been heard outside, so why didn't the other 6 people react at all? She tilted her head and listened. The 6 of them were discussing back and forth and were about to reach a consensus. They were not affected by her voice at all. Could it be that her voice couldn't be heard outside? She made up her mind and tried to shout. Her voice was so loud that it made her ears buzz. However, the 6 people outside obviously didn't hear her, and their voices were not interrupted at all. Luo Jiuqin laughed instead. Little Shuema, the people outside can't hear you. Chapter 2278. Luo Jiuqin laughed out loud instead. Little Shuema, the people outside can't hear you. Right now, only I can hear you, so you don't need to waste your energy. You can only agree to marry me now. Otherwise, Ning Shuema's heart sank. She took a breath. Luo Jiuqin, what good will it do you if you force me to death? Luo Jiuqin sighed. Little Shuema, in fact, I really don't want your life. I also want you to be whole. But you are too stubborn. So I can only settle for the second best. It's good to get half of you. Half of me? What do you mean? Luo Jiuqin's voice became gentle. Do you remember the hairpin I gave you just now? That is the spirit-gathering hairpin. After the array is launched and you are eaten by the guardian beast, your soul will not dissipate, but will be attracted to that hairpin. The guardian beast will never eat that hairpin. At that time, I will put away the hairpin and get your soul. At that time, I will rebuild your body and then you will become my wife. Ning Shuema lowered her eyes slightly and paused. I'm afraid it won't be that simple. Will you rebuild your body or me? Luo Jiuqin's voice became softer. Of course, you will still be you, but at that time you will lose all your memories. You will be as pure as a newborn baby. You will regard me as your sky and agree to whatever I say. Speaking up to this point, there was a trace of yearning in his voice. Little Shuema, 50,000 years ago, I was the one who discovered you first. If I had stayed by your side to protect you, the one you would have loved would have been me and not that person. What I am doing now is only to correct my past mistakes. Pervert. This was the only evaluation Ning Shuema wanted to give him after hearing his words. Luo Jiuqin said a few more words to her through voice transmission. It was nothing more than forcing her to agree to the engagement. He also said that as long as she agreed, he would immediately let her out and would never break his promise. Ning Xuema originally wanted to agree to the engagement temporarily and regret it when she came out. But after hearing what he said, she became uncertain. Perhaps once she agreed, there would be some kind of contract that she had to fulfill. If that was the case, she might as well die. And if she died, her soul would not gather in the spirit-gathering hairpin. After all, at that time she was already suspicious of the little monkey, so naturally she would not wear the thing it gave her. The hairpin on her head now was just a temporary change in her sleeve. It looked no different from the spirit-gathering hairpin, but its function, obviously it did not have that kind of function. At that time, she would take advantage of the time when Luo Jiuchen's attention was on the hairpin to let her soul escape. As long as her soul escaped, even if her body was destroyed, she could be reborn again, but it would take a long time. At least a year's recovery period. No matter how Luo Jiuchen tried to coerce her, Ning Xuemo refused to agree. Luo Jiuchen's expression did not change, but his chest was filled with anger. How much does this girl hate me? Even if she dies, she does not want to marry me. What is more infuriating is that she does not even want to be perfunctory with me. He coldly laughed. Little Xuema, I've already told you everything you need to know. You are courting death, so don't blame me. In fact, he lied to Ning Xuema. If Ning Xuema's soul was really gathered by the spirit-gathering hairpin, even if her body was reconstructed, she would still be a fool. Chapter 2279. In fact, he still lied to Ning Xuema. If Ning Xuema's soul was really collected by the hairpin, she would still be a fool even if her body was reconstructed. So what if she treated him as the sky? By then she could only live like a little puppet without any consciousness. He did not want her to become like that, but she had forced him to do so. Since that was the case, there was no need for him to be polite. Coincidentally, the 6 of them were almost done with their discussion. The 6 of them had reached a consensus with 4 in favor and 2 against. It was better to open the array core as soon as possible to avoid any unexpected problems. It would be bad if Luo Jiuchen came over during this period of time. Devil Master, let's break the array first. We can deal with them while waiting for the master to come over, General Ling said. Luo Jiuchen sighed softly. Well, I will listen to you. His lowered eyes flashed with a flash of fierceness. As long as the array core was opened, he would sacrifice these people to the array guardian beasts. He looked into the water again. Others could not see Ning Xuema underwater, but he could. He even smiled at her, but that smile was full of coldness. He sent her another directed audio. Little Xuema, I am sorry. It will be very painful to be eaten by the array guardian beasts because they will not only eat your body but also your soul. Therefore you will feel the pain of your body being torn apart inch by inch. This will last for about an hour before your soul is absorbed by the hairpin. You have to bear with it. Ning Xuema clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves. She looked up and smiled. She was not willing to admit defeat. Well, I will wait and see. Although she said so, her heart sank to the bottom of the ice. According to Luo Jiuchen, the array guardian beasts would not only eat people but also directly crush their souls. It would be very difficult for her to come back to life again. It did not matter if she died, but what about little Nianma? Would she have to abandon her son again? Although the people above couldn't see the scenery below Qingshui, Ning Xuema could see the scene above. She heard that Luo Jiuchen asked the 6 people of the underworld to stand in different positions, and the method he said was different from the one she used the first time. She knew that Luo Jiuchen must be playing tricks on the array again, but she couldn't remind him. The 6 people were also puzzled and asked about it. Luo Jiuchen's answer was also decisive. The location is different and the attributes of the array core are different. Naturally, the method to break the array will be adjusted accordingly. This sentence dispelled everyone's doubts. The 6 of them quickly got into position and were ready for battle. Luo Jiuchen stood there and looked at the center of the pool. His eyes flickered slightly and he transmitted his voice again. Little Xuema, do you know what this array formation is for? When the array guardian beast comes out later, it will be particularly bloodthirsty after swallowing you. The position of these 6 people is particularly suitable for it to eat. Moreover, this position will completely anger the array guardian beast, and it will tear them apart alive. It will give them the most painful way to completely stimulate the resentment in their body. The more resentment there is, the more effective it is for me. Little Xuema, until now, are you still not willing to agree to marry me? As long as you agree, not only will you not die, but I will also let these people go. This was a very tempting condition. However, Ning Xuema did not move at all under the water. She did not give him any response. Luo Jiuqin's face darkened. He had indeed set a trap for Ning Xuema. Chapter 2280. Luo Jiuqin's face darkened. He had indeed set up a trap for Ning Xuema. As long as she agreed to marry him, even if it was just a casual sentence, it would be a contract. She could only be his for the rest of her life and she could never leave him. He thought that with such a threat, with Ning Xuema's intelligence and flexibility, she would temporarily agree, but he didn't expect that she seemed to have completely seen through his trick. She would rather die than say this. This made Luo Jiuqin extremely angry and he made up his mind. Since he was destined not to get her who was sane, then he would get her who was like a puppet. No matter if she was dead or alive, she should be his. He rose up and flew above the green pool, and began to move the green corpses, making them face the center. After arranging all the corpses, a fierce look flashed in his eyes. He flew diagonally and raised his hand to slap the corpse in the center. As long as he slapped the corpse, the mechanism would be officially activated. The totem pole would float up, and the array guardian beast would come out. Suddenly, the sound of a flute swayed from the outside. The flute was a rather hurried tune, and once it was played, it resounded throughout the room. The flute player. The eyes of the 6 people from the underworld lit up, and someone had already shouted excitedly. When the flute sounded, it was still a little far away. But before a single note fell, it was already very close. Luo Jiuqin's movement suddenly stopped. He didn't expect the flute player to come so quickly. The array in the south had only been activated for less than an hour. Moreover, this person was using the flute to control the array beasts and the dead zombies to tear each other apart. It would take at least an hour for the array to be broken. In addition, the distance from the southern array to this array was not short. It was a distance of 300 to 400 miles. No matter how fast that person was, it would still take him 2 hours to complete the entire journey. Therefore, Luo Jiuqin calculated that he still had some time. He could wait for the formation guardian beast to devour Ning Xuema and the 6 people from the underworld before using a forbidden technique to drive it back to the center of the formation. After the formation guardian beast devoured the resentment of those experts, its power would greatly increase. Once it entered the center of the formation, it would be able to display its strongest power. It would be able to absorb all the vitality of those who were resting in the cave. At that time he could kill the formation guardian beast and obtain its inner core. Then he would be able to obtain an extremely strong power. He planned to complete all of this within 2 hours. By the time the flute player arrived, the dust would have settled on his side. At that time he would only need to focus on dealing with the flute player. But now, the flute player had come ahead of time. If he opened the array now, at most he could kill Ning Xuema, and his other plans would be completely ruined. So this array core could not be opened for now. Since the flute player was here, he might as well take a look at who the other party was. Face to face, he didn't believe that he couldn't kill this person who had ruined his plans time and time again. He rose and waved his sleeves. All the green corpses returned to their original positions and then floated to the shore. The 6 people from the underworld were still waiting for him to activate the array core. Now that he suddenly stopped, they were stunned. Devil Master? This is? General Lung also said, Devil Master, the flute player is here. It's just right to open the array core now. Luo Jiuqin glanced at him coldly. I know when to open it. The 6 of them followed his lead. Although they didn't know what he was up to, they still obeyed his orders and retreated from their positions. Chapter 2281. Because activating the array formation required the cooperation of these 6 people, Luo Jiuqin had the urge to kill all 6 of them at once. Fortunately, he remembered that the flute player could also break the array by himself and didn't seem to need help. Killing these 6 people now would be useless, so he simply waited quietly. The sound of the flute was pleasing to the ears, like flowing water. The 6 people from the underworld acutely sensed that this flute sound was different from the flute sound of the beast tamer. The flute sound now was more like a scholar strolling leisurely under the moon, full of a leisurely feeling. A moment later the flute sound stopped and a voice sounded. Why haven't you broken the array? The voice was clear with a hint of childishness. It was still the voice of a child. The 6 people from the underworld looked at Luo Jiuqin. Luo Jiuqin raised his eyebrows and suddenly said, This array seems to have a small accident. Since you know how to break arrays, why don't you come in and discuss it with us? The 6 people from the underworld widened their eyes. They had received so much help from the flute player, but they still hadn't seen this person's true face. But this person probably wouldn't agree, right? When they were breaking the array core in the north, they had tried all sorts of ways to let the flute player in, but they hadn't succeeded. Unexpectedly, just as Luo Jiuchen finished speaking, the person outside responded with a single word. Okay. Everyone felt their vision blur and there was another person in the hall. The moment this person appeared, everyone froze. Especially Luo Jiuchen, his eyes suddenly widened, and his relaxed fingers hidden in his sleeves suddenly clenched tightly. The person who had come was a youth who looked to be 12 or 13 years old. He was dressed in a fitting moon-white robe that fluttered in the wind. His facial features were indescribably beautiful. His thin lips were slightly pursed, and he held a white jade flute in his hand. Red tassels hung down from the flute, becoming the only bright color on his body. His entire person seemed to have been carved out of the most perfect iced jade by the heavens. It was as if a casual breath could blow him away. But this person's aura was so powerful that everyone held their breaths as soon as he entered. This made everyone feel even more pressured. More importantly, this person's aura was innate and not a deliberate release of pressure. The more it was like this, the more the 6 people from the underworld were shocked. Where did this child come from? How could he have such a powerful aura? This child was only about 1.6 meters tall, but he gave the 6 people from the underworld a feeling that they had to look up to him. The moment the person with a lower cultivation level saw this child, his knees went soft and he almost knelt down. Who was this person? Who was it? Among the 6 people from the underworld, only Marshal Leng had seen Xinjiuli before. However, Xinjiuli was a divine master at that time. His aura was so strong that it was easy for people to ignore his appearance and be suppressed by his aura. From afar, they would kneel and lower their heads, not daring to look him in the eye. Therefore, Marshal Leng did not remember what the Divine Lord looked like. Moreover, Xinjiuli looked like a young teenager now, so he did not recognize him. He only felt that the teenager looked familiar, but he did not dare to think that he was Xinjiuli. Luo Jiuchen seemed to have been struck by lightning. After all, he and Xinjiuli had been rivals for so many years. Even if he had not seen Xinjiuli's appearance before, he could still recognize him. His mind was buzzing. He stared at Xinjiuli and could not believe his eyes. This person's soul was obviously gone. How could he appear again? Could he be resurrected? Chapter 2282. This person's soul was obviously gone. How could he appear again? Could he be resurrected? This was not logical. It was very illogical. Was this not him? Was this his son? That was not right. He only had one son and that was Xin Yanma. That kid was still drinking milk. It was impossible for him to grow so big overnight. The expression in his eyes fluctuated intensely as he stood there motionlessly. Xinjiuli's gaze landed on Xuema's face. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, and a smile appeared in his eyes. Xuema, are you so happy to see me that you've gone silly? Luo Jiuchen was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that he was still in Ning Xuema's appearance. His heart skipped a beat and finally he spoke with a trembling voice. Jiuli? This time he used Ning Xuema's voice to speak. It was so vivid that no one could tell the difference between the two. Even his expression at the moment was very similar to Ning Xuema's expression when she first saw Xinjiuli. She was first stunned, then surprised and then in disbelief. Xinjiuli's voice was gentle. It's me, Xuema. I'm back. Xuema, I'm back. Ning Xuema did not know how long she had been waiting for this sentence. She longed for it so much that her heart ached. However, it was under such a situation. Ning Xuema, who was underwater, desperately looked up at the surface of the water, but she could not see him. Xinjiuli was not standing by the edge of the pool, so Ning Xuema could not see his current appearance. Although his voice was still unfamiliar to her, she could recognize his identity from his conversation with Luo Jiuchen. It was him. It was really him. The flute player was really him. At this moment, Ning Xuema's heart seemed to have been poured with a bucket of boiling oil, and her blood was boiling. Hot blood rushed to the top of her head, making her want to shout out loud. She wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Intense emotions surged in her chest, causing her mind to go blank for a moment. At this moment, all of his analysis and rationality had disappeared without a trace. Only a few words were crazily flooding his mind. He was back. He was back. He really came back. God, he really came back. The heavenly lost stone didn't lie to her. Sure enough, he was revived within half a year. If the heavenly Tao stone was in her hands right now, she would probably kiss it in an instant. She was so surprised that she froze on the spot. She tried her best to open her eyes wide and look at the surface of the water. She also tried her best to prick her ears to catch all the movements on the surface. His shallow breathing, the sound of his footsteps, and his last sentence, "Shuema, I'm back." Ning Shuema almost burst into tears in an instant, but she also felt as if someone had poured a bucket of cold water over her head, making her feel cold from head to toe. Luo Jiuqin still looked like her. He had even started to pretend to be her in front of Xinjiuli. And Xinjiuli's words were also directed at that bastard. Could it be that he didn't see through Luo Jiuqin's disguise? Ning Shuema's fingers were clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Luo Jiuqin was very good at acting, and his disguise technique was also very good. If she didn't have the fiery golden eyes, she probably wouldn't be able to recognize him. If she couldn't recognize that bastard, she was afraid that she would be tricked by that bastard. Ning Shuema's heart was half cold and half fire. She couldn't help but shout, "Great God, don't believe him. He's fake. He's fake. I'm here." Her voice was so loud that it almost deafened her own ears, but the people on the surface obviously didn't hear it, because she heard Xinjiuli's voice again, "Shuema, come here." Chapter 2283. It was still a child's voice, but there was an indescribable laziness in it, just like the way he used to call her. Ning Shuema's heart trembled again. She opened her eyes wide trying to see him, but it was in vain. Luo Jiuqin was also staring at Xinjiuli, and Xinjiuli was also looking at him, with a gentleness he had never seen before. Their eyes were entangled in the air. Luo Jiuqin was indeed an old fox who had lived for tens of thousands of years. He quickly adjusted his mentality. He looked at Xinjiuli with trembling eyes and his voice was still trembling. "Julie, how did you become like this?" He was acting on the surface, but countless thoughts were churning in his mind. Did Xinjiuli recognize him? Or did he deliberately mistake him for someone else? Based on his understanding of Xinjiuli, this person had always been arrogant and disdained to act. If he recognized him, he would probably fight with him directly, right? Luo Jiuqin looked at Xinjiuli calmly. When he saw his 12 or 13-year-old appearance, his heart skipped a beat. Looking at Xinjiuli's appearance, his power obviously hadn't recovered. He couldn't even change his appearance to that of an adult. In this case, if he recognized that he was the fake Ning Shuema, he wouldn't appear so openly at this time, right? He was most likely still hiding in the dark to plot against him. From this, it could be inferred that Xinjiuli might not recognize him because of his reduced power. He might think that he was the real Ning Shuema, so he couldn't wait to appear at this time. Luo Jiuqin's acting was so real that Xinjiuli obviously didn't see it. Hearing Luo Jiuqin's question, he just sighed softly. "It's a long story. Forget it, now is not the time to talk about this. I'm afraid that Luo Jiuqin will come in a moment. Let's quickly find a way to break this array and then talk about other things." Luo Jiuqin's eyes narrowed slightly as if a storm had flashed past his eyes. He steeled his heart and walked towards Xinjiuli step by step. "Great God, am I dreaming? You're actually alive. I'm so happy." Tears seemed to be rolling in his eyes. He looked like he was really crying from happiness. Then, he threw himself in front of Xinjiuli and opened his arms to hug him. It couldn't be helped. Xinjiuli still looked like a child, and Ning Shuema was half a head taller than him. Luo Jiuqin had no bottom line, and when lovers met, they should hug. Therefore, he made up his mind and threw himself into Xinjiuli's arms. Xinjiuli staggered when he bumped into him, but he reached out to hug him and sighed, "Shuema." The two of them hugged each other, and the 6 generals of the underworld were dumbfounded. This awe-inspiring demon lord actually threw herself into the arms of a child, acting like a helpless little bird. This scene was strange no matter how one looked at it. However, this was a touching scene after all, so the 6 of them kindly held back their laughter. Luo Jiuqin took the opportunity to sense Xinjiuli's psychokinesis in his arms. It really didn't seem to be high. That's right, those who entered his array would have their psychokinesis reduced. Xinjiuli hadn't recovered yet, so his psychokinesis would be even lower. According to his deduction, Xinjiuli's power was at most on par with Sky Emperor and the others. There was no need to be afraid of him. Even if they were to fight face to face, the current Xinjiuli was far from being his opponent. What's more, Xinjiuli still thought that he was Ning Shuema, so it would be even easier to scheme against him. Luo Jiuqin wrapped his arms around Xinjiuli's waist, and his palm even gently approached a major acupuncture point on Xinjiuli's waist. Chapter 2284. Luo Jiuchen wrapped his arms around Xinjiuli's waist, and his palms even gently approached one of Xinjiuli's major acupuncture points on his waist. He only needed to use a special method to lightly touch it, and Xinjiuli would be seriously injured. Luo Jiuchen didn't know how many times he had suffered in the hands of Xinjiuli in his life. Now he finally had a chance to turn the tables. Xinjiuli's life was in his hands. He could take his life at any time. Xinjiuli didn't seem to know that the person in his arms was scheming against him. He even pulled her into his arms, tightened his arms, and sighed. "Xiuma, fortunately you're okay. When I was breaking the array in the south, I was afraid that Luo Jiuchen would come to your side to plot against you. So, as soon as the matter over there was over, I immediately rushed over. Fortunately that guy hasn't come yet. He probably heard the movement in the south and rushed there. Otherwise if you have any more accidents, He was probably moved." This great god, who had always been high and mighty, actually said a few words of love in public. The jaws of the 6 people from the underworld almost dropped. They had never even heard of such a supreme god before. However, they were husband and wife who had reunited after a long time. Under such circumstances, it wasn't surprising that he would say such things. Luo Jiuchen's eyes moved slightly. He seemed to have suddenly thought of an excellent idea, and a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes. It was easy for him to kill Xinjiuli now, but killing him like this would be too easy for him. If he let Xinjiuli break the array's core without knowing and release the array guardian beast to eat Ning Xuema, it was equivalent to Ning Xuema dying in the hands of Xinjiuli. Then he would let Xinjiuli know all of this. At that time, Xinjiuli's expression would be very good. Then this great god would really live a life worse than death, and his spirit would completely collapse. Luo Jiuchen could almost imagine Xinjiuli's regretful face. He took a light breath and slowly moved his palm away from Xinjiuli's back. "Guru, it's better for us to break the array as soon as possible, lest something unexpected happens." Xinjiuli nodded slightly. "That's right. Luo Jiuchen will be here at any time. Xuema, you should be the one to break this array core. After activating these ferocious corpses and the guardian beast, I will use the flute to control them." Luo Jiuchen was straightforward. He took a step back and was about to fly up when he suddenly staggered. Xinjiuli reached out to support him. "What's wrong?" Luo Jiuchen frowned, and there was a trace of pain in his voice. "My leg was injured just now and it hurts a little." Xinjiuli did not hesitate at all. He casually handed him a bottle of medicine. "Is it an external injury? Use this." Of course, Luo Jiuchen took it without hesitation and pursed his lips. "Jiuli, the position of my injury is a little awkward." Xinjiuli handed him a bottle of medicine and told him how to use it. Finally he said, "Take this first. This medicine can not only heal your injuries but also improve your skills. When we get out of here, find a quiet place and I will personally apply the medicine to you." Luo Jiuchen pursed his lips and nodded obediently. "Okay." He was a little embarrassed. "But I still have to break the array." He supported himself and tried to stand up. Xinjiuli sighed. "Don't worry. I will break the array core." After a pause, he helped him to the corridor at the entrance of the hall and whispered, "Take a rest here." He turned around and walked 2 steps, then came back uneasily. Chapter 2285. He turned around and walked 2 steps, but he was still worried about coming back. He waved his hand and set up a boundary around Luo Jiuchen. "It's not safe here. In order to prevent you from being accidentally hurt, I'll set up this boundary for you temporarily. This boundary only protects you from the outside. You can come out at any time, but it will take some time for a strong enemy to break into the boundary. This way it will be convenient for me to save you in time." Luo Jiuchen nodded slightly and did not forget to remind him, "Then be careful." Xinjiuli smiled faintly. "I know." Then he turned around and walked back into the hall. He told the 6 people from the underworld, "You guys go out too. I can handle this array by myself. You just need to protect the Devil Lord." The 6 people naturally obeyed this divine lord. They walked out and stood on both sides of Luo Jiuchen's boundary. Luo Jiuchen was a little suspicious. He quietly reached out from inside the boundary and passed through it easily, as if the boundary did not exist. Xinjiuli did not lie to him. This boundary only protected him from the outside. As long as he found something wrong, he could immediately break out of the boundary. Luo Jiuchen was finally relieved. Watching Xinjiuli walk to the side of the pool, his eyes flashed with a fiery excitement. The most melodramatic and hot-blooded scene was about to play out. Ning Xuema naturally heard all the movements above from the bottom of the water. She clenched her fingers so tightly that her nails were embedded in her flesh. She knew very well what Luo Jiuchen's final plan was. That bastard. He was simply the best of the perverts. She could die, but she definitely could not die in the hands of Xinjiuli. Otherwise, it would be a tragedy of unprecedented proportions. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the water surface. Finally, she saw Xinjiuli come to the side of the pool. She finally saw his figure across the water surface and clearly saw his appearance. Although she was mentally prepared, her heart still felt like it was hit by a big hammer. It seemed that he had not really recovered and could not even maintain his adult appearance. He actually appeared in front of everyone like this. She knew Xinjiuli's character very well. He didn't want anyone to see how he looked when he was a child. Now he was doing this to save her. It seemed that he was really going all out. A fire seemed to ignite in her heart. She stared at Xinjiuli on the surface of the water, took a deep breath and shouted again, "Guru!" "That was a fake. I'm here. You can't break the formation." Of course, Xinjiuli still did not hear her. He was walking around the green pond, casting a charm into the water from time to time. It was obvious that they were preparing to break the formation. Of course, Luo Jiuchen could hear Ning Xuema's cry. He laughed in his heart and sent a voice transmission to her, "Little Xuema, he can't hear you. Don't waste your energy." Ning Xuema ignored him. She had no time to deal with this person. She continued to call out to Xinjiuli, but there was no response from him. Her voice became more and more anxious, more and more desperate. In the end, her voice could even be called mournful. Luo Jiuchen was happy to see this scene. The corners of his lips curled up, but his smile was slightly cold. He watched for a moment as Xinjiuli cast the spell. Xinjiuli's fingertips flicked into the water, and streaks of white light shuttled back and forth. It was very beautiful. However, Luo Jiuchen had never seen this method of breaking the formation before. He endured for a while and finally said, "Guru, what are you doing?" Xinjiuli did not turn his head. He only replied indifferently, "Breaking the formation. But I don't remember breaking the formation using this method." Luo Jiuchen was still worried. Chapter 2286. Xinjiuli finally turned around and glanced at him. "Idiot, I'm an expert in setting up arrays, so naturally I'm also an expert in breaking arrays. Don't worry, this is my way of breaking arrays. It's foolproof." General Lung also said, "Devil Master, don't worry. The Divine Lord has already broken 2 arrays in a row without any help. He should have his own way of breaking arrays." "That's true." Luo Jiuchen's eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. He stared at Xinjiuli closely. On one hand, he wanted to learn his way of breaking arrays. On the other hand, he was making hand seals in his sleeves to guard against Xinjiuli's tricks. Under the influence of Xinjiuli's finger wind, the green pool began to ripple and the green corpses began to move slowly. Ning Xuema could clearly see Xinjiuli's movements underwater. Naturally, she could also sense the changes in the pool water. She felt that the pool water seemed to be a little hot, and it seemed to be getting hotter and hotter. "Xinjiuli, don't break the array or you'll regret it. You'll definitely regret it." Ning Xuema's voice was almost hoarse from shouting, but Xinjiuli was unmoved. He continued to set up the array methodically. The more miserable Ning Xuema's screams were, the better it was for Luo Jiuchen. He quietly opened a voice recorder charm in his sleeve and began to record Ning Xuema's screams like a tape recorder. Of course, he had to record the screams of the guardian beast when it bit Ning Xuema. He was going to show it to Xinjiuli after Ning Xuema was eaten by the guardian beast. He estimated that this would be the biggest and heaviest blow to Xinjiuli. Thinking of this, Luo Jiuchen almost trembled with excitement. His heart was beating fast and his palms were sweating. He stared closely at Xinjiuli's every move, afraid to miss any good show. Finally, Xinjiuli's preparatory work was completed. The green corpses were all facing the place where the totem pole was supposed to rise. Only the last step was left. Ning Xuema's hands and feet were cold. She looked at everything that was happening on the totem pole. She saw Xinjiuli's figure fluttering in the air. His white jade-like palm directly pressed towards the totem pole. She pursed her lips tightly and her heart almost stopped beating. "Pa!" A cracking sound was heard. Ning Xuema opened her eyes wide as she saw Xinjiuli's palm pass through the green water surface. It didn't hit the center of the totem pole. Instead, it abruptly deviated and directly hit the transparent barrier covering Ning Xuema's body. The cover shattered with a loud sound. Xinjiuli's hand didn't stop at all. His fingers were like scissors, cutting the chain that bound Ning Xuema. A red light flashed between his fingers. The chain that Ning Xuema couldn't break was broken by Xinjiuli's fingers. With a crash, the chain finally broke away from Ning Xuema's body and fell to the bottom of the water. Ning Xuema felt like she was in a dream. As soon as she was free, she felt that her wrist was grasped by someone and then rushed out of the water. The cover was condensed by Luo Jiuqin's psyche power, so it naturally had a telepathic connection with him. At the moment when the cover shattered, Luo Jiuqin noticed that something was wrong. His face changed and he shouted, "What are you doing?" He suddenly rushed out and wanted to stop it. However, he did not expect to bump into the so-called protection enchantment that Xinjiuli had set up for him. Stars flashed in front of his eyes. Damn it! Wasn't this protective barrier supposed to block the outside but not the inside? Didn't they say that it could be broken easily? Why didn't he break it with his great strength? Luo Jiuqin couldn't believe his eyes. He took a step back and raised his hand to hit the barrier in front of him. Chapter 2287. Luo Jiuqin could hardly believe his eyes. He took a step back and raised his hand to smash the enchantment in front of him. Bang! With a loud noise, the enchantment in front of him shook and a few fine cracks appeared, but it didn't break. Luo Jiuqin gritted his teeth. He was fooled. He was fooled by Xinjiuli again. This person should have recognized him long ago, but he could still talk to him calmly and even coax him like a lover. It turned out that Xinjiuli had such a shameless time. It was an eye-opener for him. However, so what if he broke the enchantment that covered Ning Xuema? The cold iron demon chain was made of countless demon souls. Without a special method, even if he had the power of God, he couldn't break it. As long as Ning Xuema wasn't released, he still had a chance. Luo Jiuqin almost didn't think and immediately tried to break the enchantment in front of him. However, before he had time to make a second move, he found that Xinjiuli had cut his cold iron demon chain like cutting a piece of cloth and directly pulled Ning Xuema out of the water. The moment the enchantment was broken, the green water rushed in and soaked Ning Xuema's whole body. When the chain was broken, Ning Xuema's psyche power instantly flowed again. Before she could react, a fair and jade-like hand grabbed her wrist. The small hand was not big and was even a little cold and trembling, but the moment it held her, it was as if it was holding the whole world and would never let go. It made Ning Xuema's heart feel as if it was being held, and the blood in her body was boiling instantly. When she was pulled out of the water by Xinjiuli, her whole body was floating. Her mind was blank, but the joy in her chest was about to explode. All kinds of intense emotions mixed together and surged, making her unable to make any reaction for a while. She even forgot that she was in a mess and forgot to clean herself up with a cleaning talisman. Just like that, she fell to the ground with Xinjiuli. The 6 people from the underworld were completely stunned. They didn't expect that this divine master didn't slap out a guardian beast, but directly pulled out a person. And this person was the devil master. Even if Ning Xuema was in a mess, she was still the devil master. They looked at Ning Xuema and then looked at the person beside them. For a moment, they were a little confused and didn't know which one was real and which one was fake. However, Xinjiuli did not give them any time to think. The moment he lifted Ning Xuema up, he turned around and shot out another ray of white light to reinforce Luo Jiuqin, who had just cracked the enchantment barrier. Luo Jiuqin, the 6 people from the underworld. Xinjiuli's figure intentionally or unintentionally flashed and blocked the eyes of the people looking at Ning Xuema. He raised his hand and cast a cleaning talisman on Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema's body instantly became clean, and she returned to her fluttering red dress. Xinjiuli also cast a few cleaning talismans on himself, as if he was stained with something dirty. His eyes were fixed on her body and his palm was still holding her. His eyes slowly looked at her from head to toe, and then from foot to head as if he was confirming something. His eyes were as deep as a pool as if to suck her in. Finally he asked the first sentence, "Xuema, how are you?" It was a very simple sentence, but it warmed her heart. Ning Xuema secretly took a breath and finally came back to her senses. She suppressed the joy that was about to surge out of her chest, raised her small face and showed a bright smile. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Her voice was still a little hoarse, but her smile was very bright. She looked at him and her eyes were reluctant to leave for a moment. "So you really recognized that he was a fake?" Xinjiuli's icy blue eyes were filled with a gentle luster. His voice was still faint, but the words he said were not faint at all. I may have mistaken the whole world for someone else, but only you. Chapter 2288. He had loved her for 3 lifetimes and had never given up on her. He could lose everything, but she was the only one he would never let go of. Even if she turned into ashes, he would still recognize her. Ning Xuema's heart was filled with warmth. This person said that he didn't know how to say sweet nothings. Wasn't this the best thing to say? Shinjuli reached out his hand and a blue pill rolled in his palm. Come eat this first. Ning Xuema didn't ask why at all. She took it and swallowed it. A wisp of coolness slid down her throat. Her hoarse voice seemed to have received the best nourishment and slowly relaxed. How is it? Much better. Ning Xuema's voice was much clearer. At this moment, her pretty face had regained its blush and her eyes were as bright as stars. Shinjuli's heart skipped a beat. He raised his arm and hugged her tightly. He said in her ear, "Wait for me." Although his voice still had a trace of a child's voice, his tone and actions were the same as before. He hugged her tightly as if he couldn't wait to bury her in his bones. Ning Xuema's heart skipped a beat. Shinjuli had already let go of her and raised his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear. We'll talk about it later. Ning Xuema nodded and agreed without hesitation. They had a long future ahead of them. There were too many things they wanted to do. They could slowly do them one by one. But now, Ning Xuema's eyes finally turned to Luo Jiuqin. Luo Jiuqin, aren't you ashamed of yourself as a man pretending to be a woman? To the 6 people of the netherworld, these words were no less shocking than an earth-shattering revelation. The 6 people's faces changed and they all stepped back. They held their magic weapons in their hands and stared at Luo Jiuqin, who had yet to break the barrier. You? Luo Jiuqin's eyes flashed. He suddenly said to Ning Xuema in a deep voice, "You are Luo Jiuqin in disguise. I am the Devil Lord." His eyes fell on Shinjuli and were as sharp as needles. This person is not the supreme god. He must be Luo Jiuqin's people in disguise. I won't let you off. He continued to attack the barrier while making false accusations against Zhu Beiji. His current kung fu had already reached the peak of perfection. After a few consecutive attacks, the first layer of the enchantment finally shattered with a bang. Because the first layer of the enchantment shook too much, the second layer of the enchantment also shook. It looked like it was about to break apart. Ning Xuema and Shinjuli glanced at each other. Then they took action at the same time. A golden red light and a white light circled around Luo Jiuqin in the air and then merged together, covering Luo Jiuqin directly. When the light dissipated, a pale golden enchantment with red edges appeared around Luo Jiuqin. Fiend God Barrier. The enchantment set up by gods and devils was stronger than any enchantment in the world. When Ning Xuema traveled back in time 50,000 years ago, she and Shinjuli had worked together to set up a barrier in the Fantian Palace. The 2 of them were used to working together, so they knew what to do with just a glance. She didn't expect that 50,000 years later, after Shinjuli was reborn, they could still work together so well. Ning Xuema was gratified, but she couldn't help but look at him beside her. A question surfaced in her mind. Was the current great god the great god who traveled back in time 50,000 years ago, or the great god who was reborn with 3 lives of memories? Of course, this thought only turned in her mind for a moment before she suppressed it. Now was not the time to think about this. Luo Jiuqin had just broken the second layer of the enchantment, but before he could stretch his arms and legs, he was covered by the Fiend God Barrier again. Chapter 2289. There was a faint golden light in the enchantment of gods and devils, and there were countless shining Sanskrit characters spinning rapidly in the golden light. The Sanskrit characters spun faster and faster and quickly penetrated the red light. Finally, the Sanskrit characters covered the whole enchantment. The golden and red light represented the joint judgment of gods, devils, and Buddhas. It could trap any creature that had committed the most heinous of crimes and torture their souls at every moment. Luo Jiuqin only felt that his whole body was thrown into a raging fire, and his soul was almost roasted. Every inch of his body was in pain as if it was being torn apart. Of course he was unwilling to give up. He frequently used various spells to break the enchantment. But the enchantment did not move at all. It was like a golden and red shield, suppressing his whole body under it, and he could no longer turn over. The pain almost made him want to roll and howl. But she was outside. Even if she did not love him or even hated him, he did not want her to see him in such a sorry state. His face was blue, white and red, but he tried to keep his poise. The spells in his hands changed and complicated, and various lights hit the enchantment of gods and devils from time to time, trying to open a gap to the outside world. Ning Xuema did not expect the enchantment set up by her and Xinjiuli to be so powerful. 50,000 years ago, when she and Xinjiuli were in their heyday, the enchantment setup was not so powerful. What was going on this time? As if sensing Ning Xuema's doubts, Xinjiuli held her hand and said, "This is not a simple enchantment of gods and devils, but also a Buddhist device." Ning Xuema's heart skipped a beat. When she was reborn this time, her body emitted golden and red light. Bai Zhe seemed to have said that there was a Buddhist nature in her magic light. It seemed to be the reason. If she and Xinjiuli set up the enchantment alone, it would not be so powerful. Only when the two of them worked together, it would be invincible. Thinking of this, she was happy and couldn't help but hug Xinjiuli's arm. "Ha, Guru, it seems that we are invincible with the combination of the two enchantments." She was used to hugging his arm, and every time she hugged him, she hung on his arm. This time, it was as if she was holding him by the arm. She lowered her head subconsciously and found that Xinjiuli seemed to be a little shorter than before. If he was 1.6 meters tall earlier, he was now about 1.55 meters tall. Even his facial features were a little more tender. Ning Xuema was about 1.66 meters tall. She was 10 centimeters taller than him. Xinjiuli smiled and said, "When we combine our powers, we will be invincible." Even he didn't expect that the enchantment they set up together would be so powerful. If he had known earlier, he would have come out to meet her when he was breaking the array core in the north. He didn't come out in advance because he didn't want Luo Jiuchen to discover his existence before all the array cores were destroyed. He didn't want Luo Jiuchen to rush out of the array and destroy it as well as the lives of everyone in the array. He had no choice but to come out this time. As soon as he arrived, he found that the Ning Xuema in the hall was a fake. It was Luo Jiuchen in disguise. He secretly used his third eye to search and found Ning Xuema trapped under the water. Seeing that her life was hanging by a thread, he showed up regardless of everything. Of course, the moment he showed up, he began to plot in his heart and led Luo Jiuchen into his trap step by step. For this reason, he even accompanied Luo Jiuchen to put on an act. He even endured the disgust and hugged him as if he was Ning Xuema. Chapter 2290. Luo Jiuchen's face darkened when he saw the interaction between the two of them. Wind and clouds gathered in his eyes. He continued to use Ning Xuema's voice to disguise himself. He shouted at the 6 people from the underworld who obviously hadn't figured out the situation. "She's pretending to be me. Can't you see? Let me out." The 6 people from the underworld finally turned their eyes back to him. General Leng suddenly laughed as if he had heard an incredible joke. "Luo Jiuchen, you still want to pretend to be our devil lord? Take a piss and look at yourself first." "That's right. A scum like you wants to pretend to be the devil lord. What a joke. I've lived for so many years, but this is the first time I've met such a weirdo. A man pretending to be a woman is so shy. Bah, I'm going to vomit." Luo Jiuchen was stunned. He looked down at himself and his face darkened. He didn't know when it started, but his body had changed back to its original appearance. He hated that he didn't realize it and gave them a big joke for no reason. The divine devil enchantment not only had the function of trapping him, but also could automatically restore his original appearance. A trace of viciousness flashed across his eyes. He waved his hand and a black fog appeared out of thin air. There were countless large and small ferocious faces in the black fog. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced on the enchantment. The 6 people closest to the barrier felt a chill run down their spines when they sensed the resentment coming from the barrier. But they didn't expect that the moment the black fog touched the enchantment, it would be like a moth flying into a fire. Shrill screams came from the black fog as if it was burned by fire. It turned into charred balls and fell to the ground. It twitched a few times and then stopped breathing. Luo Jiuchen's deadly black fog disappeared without a trace. He was so angry that his teeth itched. He was unwilling to give up and used all kinds of methods, but the magic attacks that hit the enchantment would be reflected back to the caster. So all of Luo Jiuchen's moves were used on himself. Luo Jiuchen gave up on magic attacks and began to use physical attacks. But once his body touched the enchantment, the flowing Sanskrit would immediately flow onto his body. The burning sensation hurt all the way to his soul. His originally handsome and warm face was now filled with viciousness. He had to escape first. When he came back he would personally kill these people. He chanted an earth-burrowing art, and with a flash he burrowed into the ground. The 6 of them were shocked and shouted, "Divine Lord!" He ran away. Once Luo Jiuchen successfully escaped, they would definitely face crazy revenge. Shinjuli glanced at the barrier indifferently. His voice was cold and emotionless. He can't run away. Sure enough, as soon as Shinjuli finished speaking, Luo Jiuchen came out again. At this moment he was in a much more sorry state than before. His entire body was covered in wounds. He glared fiercely at Shinjuli. The hatred in his eyes was almost tangible. He wanted nothing more than to tear Shinjuli apart. Ning Xuema looked at Luo Jiuchen's disheveled appearance, and the gloom in her heart finally dissipated a little. She crossed her arms and said leisurely, "Luo Jiuchen, I forgot to tell you that underneath the fiend god boundary is the 3 true flames. TSK, look at you." Ning Xuema's heart, which had been stretched taut, finally relaxed a bit. At this moment she had the leisure to laugh at Luo Jiuchen. Luo Jiuchen. His eyes fell on Ning Xuema like an awl. He suddenly sighed. "Little Xuema, do you want me to die so badly?" Chapter 2291. Ning Xuema glanced at him coldly. "I don't want you to die. I want you to go to the 18th level of hell." She had never hated a person so much. Luo Jiuchen was the first. Luo Jiuchen slightly lowered his eyes, the corner of his mouth slightly hooked up. Suddenly he smiled and slowly took out a white jade hairpin. He placed it under his nose and sniffed it. "Little Xuema, no matter what, I still have to thank you for giving me the only headdress you have. This hairpin, I will always keep it with me." Ning Xuema was speechless. She flicked her fingers and 2 golden and red lights shot towards Luo Jiuchen. She would rather give her things to a real monkey than give them to him. Luo Jiuchen had been prepared for this. The wizardry barrier was not big, but it almost surrounded him, making it difficult for him to move. Ning Xuema shot 2 golden and red lights at him. One went between his eyebrows and the other went to his wrist. He could only dodge one of them. Ning Xuema thought that he would dodge the one between his eyebrows, but he dodged the one on his wrist. He couldn't dodge the other one, so he could only tilt his head. Luckily he dodged the one between his eyebrows, but it shot directly at his temple. He groaned. His temple seemed to have a small snake in it. He was in so much pain that his face turned pale and he broke out in a cold sweat. He smiled and raised his hand to put the hairpin into his storage space. Then he looked up at Ning Xuema. "Little Xuema, if you want this hairpin back, you will have to kill me." The storage space was hidden in people's hearts and lungs. If you forcibly took something from someone's storage space, you would have to kill the person. In that case the storage space would lose its effect and the thing would fall out. Luo Jiuchen was a standard immortal, so no one knew what would happen to him after he turned into a demon. Therefore Ning Xuema's hairpin was probably a meat bun thrown to a dog, and it would never return. Ning Xuema secretly clenched her fingers. She didn't care about the hairpin, but she didn't want it to fall into his hands for his fantasies. Shinjuli patted the back of her hand gently. "Don't worry, I'm here for everything." A sword slowly appeared in his hand as he looked at Luo Jiuchen indifferently. "I will do as you wish." Luo Jiuchen was shocked, but then he sneered, "Shinjuli, you may be able to defeat me, but don't even think about killing me. Furthermore." He glanced maliciously at Shinjuli. "Your power is not even 10 to 20% of your original power. As long as I can get out of here, I can immediately tear you apart. I'll let you die again." He then looked at Ning Xuema. It was hard to tell whether his gaze was filled with hatred or affection. "And she will be mine sooner or later." His voice was filled with an eerie ghostly aura. He was obviously trapped in the barrier, but the aura on his body was shocking in an instant, causing the 6 people from the underworld who were closer to him to shiver in their hearts. They couldn't help but retreat. Ning Xuema pursed her lips. "If you want to beat a drowning dog, you have to beat it to death. You can't have the slightest mercy, or there will be endless trouble." Unfortunately, because she lacked 2 ingredients for the poison of heavenly water, she hadn't been able to refine it until now. Even if she defeated Luo Jiuchen, she couldn't really kill him. Shinjuli was too lazy to pay attention to Luo Jiuchen. He patted the back of Ning Xuema's hand gently. "Xuema, you rest here first. I'll go break the array core." Ning Xuema pulled him back. Shinjuli seemed to be a little younger. He used to look like a 13-year-old child, but now he looked like an 11 or 12-year-old. Chapter 2292. He must have expended a lot of energy to save her, right? Although she was in danger at the moment, she felt an unprecedented warmth in her heart. She smiled and pulled Shinjuli back. Almighty, have a good rest. Leave the matter of breaking the array to me. Her eyes flashed with confidence. She was shining like a morning star. Shinjuli looked at her dazzling appearance and his eyes moved. This was his Shuema. Although she was weak at the beginning, she had been working hard to grow. Now she had finally grown into an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. She no longer relied on him blindly, but could help him solve his problems. They were the closest lovers and at the same time, the most trusted comrade in arms. He was proud of her. How lucky he was to be able to marry her. Shinjuli reached out and hugged her. Okay, Shuema, be careful. He had recovered less than a third of his power. Previously, he had used up a lot of his telekinesis to break the array. When he rescued Ning Shuema, he had used up a lot of his telekinesis. After setting up the divine demon enchantment, his telekinesis had almost reached its limit. At the moment, although he was holding on, his body had shrunk a little. He really needed to rest for a while to recover. Ning Shuema lowered her head and kissed him on the forehead. Don't worry, I will. Then she turned and left. Shinjuli. This feeling of being hugged like a child? He looked at her with a faint smile. He wasn't embarrassed. His child appearance was only temporary. He would grow up soon and return to his original appearance. At that time he would hug her back. He raised his hand and swallowed a few pills. Then he closed his eyes and concentrated. After a while, a faint white light appeared around him and flowed endlessly around him. Previously, Ning Shuema had already broken several barriers, so breaking this one was naturally a walk in the park for her. Luo Jiuchen looked at the scene of Shinjuli and Ning Shuema being intimate, and his eyes gradually turned red. Why should Shinjuli monopolize all the benefits in the world? He was also a god and his abilities were equally boundless. Why did Ning Shuema only have eyes for Shinjuli? Luo Jiuchen had done so much, but why did Ning Shuema still look at him as if he was a disgusting thing? He refused to accept this. He refused to accept it. He gritted his teeth and laughed. His voice was as slippery as a venomous snake's, carrying a sinister and evil feeling. Little Shuema, you can only trap me temporarily, but you can't kill me. I have an immortal body. When I come out, I'll definitely ravage you to death. He suddenly screamed. Indeed, Shinjuli shot out a white light that shot into the barrier like an arrow, leaving a terrifying wound on Luo Jiuchen's mouth, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. This fiend god barrier was designed to defend against the inside and not the outside. Anger rose in Luo Jiuchen's eyes, but the more angry his heart was, the calmer his appearance was. Luo Jiuchen looked at Shinjuli and said playfully, "When did you recognize me?" He had always thought that his transformation technique was the best in the world, and he could imitate Ning Shuema perfectly. Moreover, he had risked everything to imitate Ning Shuema and threw himself into his arms. How did he recognize him? Anyway, he couldn't get out for a while, so he might as well disturb Shinjuli so that he couldn't meditate to recover. Unexpectedly, Shinjuli didn't even look at him as if he didn't exist. Luo Jiuchen was even angrier. He racked his brains and wanted to talk to Shinjuli. How did you break the barrier I set around Ning Shuema? Little Shuema struggled for a long time but couldn't break it. She could only watch you approach step by step. Chapter 2293. He racked his brains and tried to talk to Shinjuli. How did you break the wizardry barrier I set around Ning Shuema? You know, your little Shuema struggled for a long time but failed to break my wizardry barrier. She could only watch you approach step by step and then she was killed by you. Shinjuli glanced at Luo Jiuchen and waved his hand. He cast a silence spell and silenced Luo Jiuchen's voice. This time Luo Jiuchen was really locked up in the small dark room. The 6 people of the underworld also breathed a sigh of relief and finally stopped. God knew why Luo Jiuchen was so noisy. He was like a fly buzzing around which made them feel dizzy. In fact, Shinjuli broke the wizardry barrier that locked Ning Shuema at the beginning, not the array that would take away Shuema's life. When he was about to break the array, he naturally heard Ning Shuema's desperate cry. Looking at her embarrassed appearance under the water, he looked calm on the surface, but his heart tightened. But in order not to be noticed by Luo Jiuchen, he could only pretend that he didn't hear or see anything. It seemed that it was the last blow that broke Ning Xuema's wizardry barrier, but in fact, his goal from the beginning was to save her. But he suspected that this girl had guessed his purpose when he set up all this by the pool. Her screams seemed to be for Luo Jiuchen to hear. It was the first time that he had heard her scream so hoarsely, as if she was extremely scared. But he didn't see the real despair and panic on her face when she had been looking up at him. At that time she looked at him with eyes like fire. This girl had always been a genius at acting. Shenjuli meditated for a moment, and with the help of the strange medicine he had, his body recovered a little. Now was not the time to meditate and rest. After a while Ning Xuema would break the array eye. At that time the array guardian beasts would come out, and he would need to use the flute to order them to kill each other. As soon as he got up, he found that there was also a circle of golden red enchantment around him. Needless to say, Ning Xuema saw him meditating and was afraid that he would be attacked, so she set it up for him in advance. She was really extraordinarily considerate. His heart was filled with warmth. The feeling of being cared for by someone he loved was simply too good. Ning Xuema had been paying attention to Shenjuli's movements while she was arranging the formation eye. Seeing him get up, she looked at him with concern in her eyes. Shenjuli gave her a look that said he was fine. Only then did she heave a sigh of relief and continue to arrange everything at hand. The two of them did not speak, but with one look they understood each other's thoughts. There was no more tacit understanding between them. The enchantment that Ning Xuema had set up for him only blocked the outside but not the inside. Shenjuli easily broke the enchantment. Holding the white jade flute, he walked out and stood in front of the divine devil enchantment. Luo Jiuchen sat there in a purple robe. His face was abnormally pale, probably because he had been burned by the invisible fire in the divine devil enchantment. From time to time, purple light would emit from his body. It was obvious that he was using his own protective psychokinesis to resist. His eyes were open and his gaze was fixed on Ning Xuema. He did not even blink and no one knew what he was thinking. After Shenjuli walked over, he blocked his line of sight. He looked up coldly and stared at Shenjuli. "Are you very proud?" Shenjuli looked down at him and said coldly, "I don't need to be proud." He stretched out his flute, and a ball of white light burst out from the flute, lifting up the divine devil enchantment that trapped Luo Jiuchen. Chapter 2294. Luo Jiuchen's expression changed. "What are you doing?" He wanted to stand up, but as soon as he moved, he was injured by the invisible spell in the divine demon enchantment. He sat down again as if he had been scalded. Shenjuli was too lazy to answer him. Instead he took action. With a light flick of the flute, he threw Luo Jiuchen into the green pool. Shenjuli used some spell to make the divine demon enchantment stick to the totem pole at the bottom of the pool. Luo Jiuchen's expression changed. "Shenjuli, what do you mean?" Shenjuli's voice was still calm as he said, "I'm giving you a taste of your own medicine." Luo Jiuchen. Ning Xuema was also standing beside the pool. Although she couldn't see what was going on under the water, she knew what was going on from Shenjuli's actions and words. Her eyes lit up. The Almighty was standing up for her. Luo Jiuchen wanted to feed her to the array guardian beast, but now it was his turn. Let him have a taste of his own medicine. Would be ecstasy. The divine demon enchantment only blocked the inside but not the outside. The outside could attack him normally but they couldn't drag him out. There would be a good show to watch. "Thank you, Almighty." Ning Xuema gave Shenjuli a flying kiss. She smiled like a blooming flower. Shenjuli's expression did not change. He glanced at her and said, "I'll be waiting for your gift." Ning Xuema naturally knew what he meant by gift of thanks, and her heart skipped a beat. "Almighty, you still look like a child. Is it really okay to tease a good woman like this?" She suddenly had a mischievous thought. She hugged the Almighty and kissed him on the forehead. "Here's the gift of thanks." Then she let go of him and stepped back. "Okay, let's break the array now." Shenjuli raised his hand and rubbed his forehead where she had kissed him. This was not the gift he wanted, or it could be said that this was far from enough. In the future he would make her give it to him with interest. He smiled and didn't say anything. Instead he took a step back and placed the white jade flute to his lips. When Ning Xuema saw that he was completely prepared, she was finally relieved. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and she was like a graceful red butterfly shuttling through the zombie crowd. Her figure was as graceful as a fairy flying in the sky. Watching her break the formation was like watching a delightful dance in the sky. When all the green corpses were facing the center, Ning Xuema leaped up. The red light in her hand instantly condensed, and with a thunderous force she slammed it towards the totem pole. Following a thunderous rumble, the water in the green pool surged like waves, and the ground beneath his feet also shook as if there was an earthquake. A sharp and muffled low howl came from the bottom of the water, which sounded like the howl of an elephant. As the totem pole rose, a pair of blood-red wings with blue edges appeared first, followed by a bird head. What kind of bird was this? Fire phoenix? Ning Xuema had a flash of doubt in her mind. Before she could finish her question, there were a series of popping sounds in the water, and 8 more heads appeared one after another. A total of 9 heads appeared in the water, and these heads formed a circle. Looking at the beautiful feathers on the heads, they looked a little like a phoenix, but there was no phoenix crown. The heads and faces looked a little like a human with a pair of watery eyes, and only the mouths were sharp like an eagle's beak. 9 heads, 9-headed bird. Ghost chariot. The legendary ferocious bird with 9 heads and 9 mouths, and each mouth was a lethal weapon. Chapter 2295. Luo Jiuchen was really capable. He actually got so many ferocious beasts to guard the 4 cardinal points. Ning Xuema knew that this thing was not easy to deal with. She gestured to the 6 people standing in the direction of the underworld and asked them to leave quickly. The 6 people also knew that this was not the time to show off. Before the bird really came out and the green corpse had not jumped out of the water, they all retreated out of the hall. After the ghost chariot bird emerged, it did not immediately jump out like other guardian beasts. Instead, it directly rushed back to the totem pole. Its huge body surrounded the totem pole, and its 9 sharp beaks pecked at the head on the totem pole together. The bird was huge. Under such a circle, it tightly surrounded the entire god and devil enchantment. There was no gap. Ning Xuema stood in the distance and could not see what kind of attack Luo Jiuchen suffered in the enchantment. She only heard his uncontrollable groan in the rise and fall of the 9 bird heads. Obviously, the attack of the 9-headed bird made this demonic god suffer a lot. Every time the 9 heads of the ghost chariot rose and fell, it could bring a rain of blood, which looked strange and bloody. Ning Xuema clenched her fingers. If Xinjiuli had not rescued her in time, it would have been her who was pecked by the 9 heads of the ghost chariot at this moment. The ghost chariot attacked the god and devil enchantment for a full minute. This minute may not be much for others, but for the people who were being tortured, this minute was as long as a day. While Ning Xuema was waiting for it, her heart suddenly moved. Looking at the speed of the ghost chariot eating people, it was quite fast, but it would take 1 or 2 minutes. When she broke the cardinal point in the north, the Taotai rushed out almost at the same time as the cardinal point was broken, and it did not stop at all. It did not look like it ate people before coming up. Could it be that the images Luo Jiuchen showed her at the beginning were actually fake? Yi Tianli and the others did not become sacrifices under the water. Everything was fabricated by Luo Jiuchen to stimulate her? The more she thought about it, the more likely it was. Luo Jiuchen, this pervert, had used all kinds of despicable means to force her to submit? Creating an illusion to make her feel guilty and blame herself was a piece of cake for him. Thinking that Yi Tianli and the others might still be alive and that Yi Tianli probably did not die under her hands, the last haze in Ning Xuema's heart dissipated. Blood continued to flow out of the God-fiend barrier, and in the end, it almost dyed the green pond red. Ning Xuema stood at the side and watched. She felt that the tables had turned. In this respect, Luo Jiuchen could be considered a man. After being tortured like this, he only snorted a few times and did not scream. Because Ghost Car was concentrating on getting Luo Jiuchen out of the enchantment, the resurrected green zombies attacked Ning Xuema directly. However, before they could reach Ning Xuema, the sound of a flute was heard, a strange tune that could not be described as pleasant to the ears spiraled in the hall. Those ferocious green-skinned zombies were instantly manipulated. They swayed back and forth in the hall like marionettes. They no longer attempted to attack Ning Xuema, but instead started killing each other. Strange screams were heard frequently in the hall, and all kinds of rotten green mucus flew everywhere. Even the arms and legs of the green zombies flew out from time to time. It was a real mess. Ning Xuema retreated to Xinjiuli's side early to protect him. Once a green zombie approached, it would be slapped away by her sword. She looked at the green zombies fighting each other and breathed a sigh of relief. Her eyes could not help but turn back to Xinjiuli. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.